Chapter 26. The next moment, the big man was like a kite with a broken string. He didn't even have time to activate his awakening ability. He flew high into the sky and then fell heavily to the ground. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere, and the whole person was instantly lifeless. Oh, it seems our first contestant wasn't so lucky and was eliminated directly. What a pity. The hungry wolf on the podium just shook his head with regret, then waved his hand, and some staff walked into the arena and carried the big man's mutilated body out. What's going on? When we signed up for the competition, you didn't tell us there would be any changes this year. However, after witnessing the tragic scene of the big man, many contestants began to protest indignantly. That's it. What is this? I want to quit. Quit? You guys are just trying to beat us to death, right? We can still show some mercy when we're sparring among ourselves. There were constant protests, but Chu Chen remained standing there with a calm expression, quietly watching the people around him shouting. To him, the rules are not important because he has to participate in the competition, no matter what the competition becomes. Mu Suihuang in the audience was pale. In her opinion, the referee's strength would never be lower than the second level, and the awakened ability seemed to be related to rocks. Rocks often represent the existence of power, so the power of that punch is definitely extraordinary. At this moment, she hoped that the protests of the players on the field would work, at least in this way, Chu Chen could withdraw from the competition. Oh! However, in the face of the protests of some contestants, the hungry wolf on the platform suddenly chuckled disdainfully, and the next moment, buzz! There was a flash of knife light, and instantly it fell on the contestant who was the first to lead the protest. The extreme sword energy instantly split the contestant's body into two, turning it into two pools of meat that fell to the ground. The noisy protests instantly died down, and most people looked at each other, with some fear on their faces. Everyone, although we didn't tell you in advance that we were going to change the rules, we also didn't say that there wouldn't be any changes to the rules this year. Moreover, when you decided to sign up, you had already agreed to our contract terms, which clearly stated that we have the final right of interpretation. At this time, Hungry Wolf's tone had become extremely cold, and his words reminded Chu Chen of the series of clauses that the Cheongsam young woman had asked him to read in the room just now. However, the terms and conditions were at least several thousand words long, and he did not read them carefully. Just like playing games, before entering the game company will ask you to agree to a series of terms, but most people will choose to scroll directly to the bottom of the terms and click to agree. Maybe some people will have the patience to read it all, but they are few and far between. The referee on the field did not stop what he was doing. He then started walking towards other players. Some of them were lucky enough to win the next round by rock paper scissors. Of course, there are also many people who fail in rock paper scissors and face a punch from the referee. There are only two possible outcomes for these people. One is that they are completely unable to resist and directly lose their combat capability or even die. One type is to block it, but these blocked players will have more or less some injuries and enter the next round with injuries. The pace of rock paper scissors was very fast, until a player in front of Chu Chen was killed by a punch, and the referee finally came to him. Hey! Please allow me to introduce this contestant named Zhongli to everyone. He is the first contestant in our fighting arena to participate in the competition as a VIP. Witnessing this scene, the hungry wolves on the platform began to shout. There are also huge differences between these invited spectators, and these differences can be seen from the masks they wear. Ordinary spectators only wear animal or insect masks, and only rich and noble guests are qualified to wear masks that resemble human faces. Just like the mask Chu Chen is wearing now, who among the distinguished guests like him would be so desperate as to throw himself into this life and death duel? At this time, the betting on Chu Chen has already begun, and many people have started betting on whether he can enter the next round. Scissors. Rock. The referee in front of him growled again. Cloth. Before the other party finished speaking, Chu Chen continued speaking and stretched out a cloth in his hand. Unfortunately, the referee's gesture was a pair of scissors. Seeing this scene, many people began to exclaim. Now everyone in the audience began to look forward to what would happen when Chu Chen faced the referee's punch. Mu Suihuang's heart was at her most nervous at this moment. She stared at the field with fear on her face, and had no other choice but to pray. Seeing the huge fist covered with rock raised high and swinging towards Chu Chen, everyone stared with bated breath. To everyone's surprise, facing this punch, Chu Chen not only did not make any defensive moves, but instead clenched his fists, as if he was going to punch the other person as well. The rock element in his body silently attached to his fist, and as he punched out, it instantly collided heavily with the opponent's fist. Boom! Horror, extreme horror! It had overwhelming power, a power he could never hope to match. This was the referee's first feeling after the boxing match with Chu Chen. The power he was so proud of was completely suppressed for the first time. He only felt that there was an insurmountable presence in Chu Chen's fist. It was a power as high and mighty as that of a god or emperor, and the rock power in his body actually chose to surrender at the first moment. He had no time to react at all. The blast caused by the violent explosion instantly blew the referee's huge body away. Bang! At the same time, under Chu Chen's feet, the ground within a radius of hundreds of meters with him as the center was torn apart in an instant. In an instant, sand and rocks flew everywhere in the arena, causing a strong vibration in the fighting arena. What is going on? Thick grey fog obscured the audience's view. Everyone was only concerned with the shaking of the fighting arena and had not noticed what was happening inside. Until the wind and sand gradually dissipated. A scene that no one had expected appeared before everyone. The referee's body, which was like a mountain of flesh, had now collapsed to the ground, and the entire arm that launched the attack had now been completely broken. Under the red evil ghost mask, there was an extremely shrill scream. In an instant, the huge venue fell into incomparable silence. But soon, after the silence, unprecedented cheers broke out. Chapter 27. The contestant knocked down the referee. This is a... The key is his strength. Did you see it? It's completely overwhelming. Damn it! I bet on the wrong thing. Is your code name Zhongli? Wearing that mask, so damn handsome. The whole audience began to boil over, and a result beyond everyone's expectations appeared before everyone. Apparently, even the staff of the competition had not expected this. The hungry wolf on the platform was stunned and stood there, with the microphone held to his lips making no response. As for Mu Sui Huang, she was completely stunned and shocked at this moment. At this moment, her heart was roaring non-stop. She couldn't understand why Chu Chen could burst out with such powerful strength in just a few days. Is this a god-level talent? Their growth is simply beyond the estimation of ordinary people. Humph, no wonder he suddenly wanted to participate in the competition. I thought he was crazy, but I didn't expect he really had the confidence. Fortunately, Mu Sui Huang's worries were finally dispelled. After all, the referee's strength is by no means that of an ordinary awakener. In terms of strength alone, it is estimated that no one in the entire arena can match him except Chu Chen. The huge rock in her heart finally fell to the ground, and Mu Sui Huang's face, which was originally pale under the mask, regained some color. In that case, I'll give it a try. A new round of betting has begun, and this time the bet is on who will win the final championship. Zhongli, I bet 1 million on him. Mu Sui Huang suddenly spoke and gestured, and at the same time took out a black gold card in her hand. The 1 million yuan in it was the pocket money she had saved. Hey! I want to bet on Zhongli too. Me too. Me too. Following closely, many people around followed suit and invested. For a time, it seemed that Chu Chen was the favorite to win. A bunch of idiots, betting on this trend will most likely result in losing everything. Just as everyone was placing their bets, an untimely voice suddenly sounded nearby. I saw a man wrapped in a black windbreaker and wearing a clown-like mask speaking coldly. His words instantly attracted the attention of many people around who wanted to bet on Chu Chen. Seeing that he had attracted a lot of attention, the clown mask spoke again. Underground fighting competitions are never fair. In previous competitions, there is a high probability that someone behind the scenes has been secretly manipulating the situation. To put it simply, in previous competitions, there were many players like Zhongli who showed great strength in the previous battles, which led to many people following suit and placing bets. If such a favorite to win the championship shows too much strength and attracts the majority of people to follow suit and place bets, it is very likely to attract the attention of the people behind the scenes, and then some targeted rules will be made in the subsequent competitions, preventing the favorite from making it to the end. Anyway, let's wait and see. After saying this, the clown mask lowered his head and remained silent. The crowd around, who had been overwhelmed by the momentary enthusiasm, also calmed down and prepared to think things over carefully. As for Mu Sui Huang, her expression became heavy again after hearing what the clown said. She was not worried about her 1 million, but she was worried about being targeted in the next competition. After all, this fighting arena buried deep underground is really unfair. Aren't you going to announce my results yet? On the field, looking at the host who had not spoken for a long time, Chu Chen waved his hand and said. This voice also brought Hungry Wolf back to his senses. He couldn't help swallowing his saliva and stammered, Contestant Zhongli, successfully entered the next round. No. But, due to the referee's injury, the match is suspended. At the same time, we need to discuss the subsequent events. Following these words, the game that was in progress was suspended immediately, and the referee who had already been beaten to death was carried away by a dozen awakened people with auxiliary abilities. The players behind Chu Chen breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, at least at this moment, they no longer had to worry about their own safety. But because of this, the players who were originally standing near Chu Chen also quietly moved away to the periphery. At this point, most of the contestants' fear of Chu Chen was far greater than their previous fear of the referee. This guy's power is too terrifying. Even if we advance to the next round, we won't be able to do anything if we run into him. I'm afraid the champion has already been decided. What should we do then? Hush! I heard that someone might target us later. Listening to the players around him whispering to him, Chu Chen simply chose to close his eyes and rest. Let them think whatever they want, the championship is already secured. Legendary mission, there is no reason for him to fail. After resting for a few minutes, the disappeared wolf stood on the platform again. Dear audience, sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. According to our discussion just now, since the referee was severely injured by Zhongli, he will not be able to fully recover in a short period of time, so we have decided that all the players from now on will directly advance to the next round. What? Garu's words instantly caused two completely different reactions on the field. First, the contestants after Chu Chen cheered for not having to play the rock-paper-scissors game which carried the risk of losing their lives and could directly enter the next round. In contrast, Chu Chen had played the rock-paper-scissors game before. Especially those contestants who failed in the game and entered the next round because they blocked the referee's punch were naturally very unhappy. Because they all had some injuries on their bodies from trying to block that punch, if they went into the next round together and faced those unharmed contestants after Chu Chen, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. Apparently knowing that this decision would cause dissatisfaction among some people, Hungry Wolf quickly added, of course. We value fairness the most. Before entering the next round, all players are requested to rest for 30 minutes. During this time, there will be special treatment staff to heal everyone and ensure that everyone can maintain the best condition. Once these words were spoken, they calmed down the resentment of most people. After all, they were just contestants and could do nothing about the unfair treatment from the organizers. It's already good enough that they can heal their wounds now. Chu Chen naturally didn't care about all these trivial matters. He went straight to the exit of the stadium and entered the backstage lounge. He didn't need to heal his wounds and could just wait for the next game to start in 30 minutes. Chapter 28. 30 minutes passed in a flash. All the contestants who entered the next round slowly lined up and walked towards the competition venue again. Chu Chen took a quick look and found that there were still more than 50 contestants. More than 50 people stepped onto the field again. The huge field made these athletes look very small. The cracks on the field that were previously created by him were repaired within half an hour and there was no sign of damage at all. Intense cheers broke out again from the packed stands all around, and a light blue barrier had risen between the stadium and the audience seats. I think it is to protect the spectators from being affected by the aftermath of the fighting on the field. Although the stadium was large, more than 50 people each found a place to stand, and everyone deliberately stayed away from others. Aren't we supposed to draw lots for a one-on-one duel? Why are these people being allowed to compete together again? Who knows? Didn't they say there would be changes this year? It's really getting more and more exciting. There was constant shouting in the audience, and all eyes were focused on the game. Haha, the targeting has begun. At this moment, the clown mask that had remained silent suddenly spoke again, with an attitude of watching a good show. The sound was not loud amid the surrounding noise, but it was accurately captured by Mu Suihuang who was nearby. Targeting. Could it be? Her eyes became more and more uneasy, and her gaze passed through the crowd in the stadium and stared at Chu Chen. Everyone, thank you for your waiting. The rules of this round of competition will be greatly changed compared to previous years. It is a mode that has never been seen in our underground fighting arena, a free-for-all. The host Hungry Wolf's voice rang out again, drowning out the noise in the venue, deafening, based on previous year's competitions, we found that rounds of duels are too boring. I believe that many viewers have long been bored with this. Since we want to present the most exciting visual feast for you, what could be more exciting than a melee of dozens of awakened people fighting each other? So, the rules for this round of the melee are very simple. Fight on your own. No matter what method you use, fight to the end. Whoever stands to the end will be the king of this year. Garu's words were very exciting, and when they heard that more than 50 contestants were going to fight in chaos, the whole audience burst into cheers again. After all, the scene of dozens of people fighting in a melee is definitely more exciting to watch than rounds of one-on-one duels. In the huge competition arena, after hearing the rules of the melee, almost at the same time, the eyes of other players were all focused on Chu Chen. You have just seen this guy's strength. In a one-on-one fight, who among you dares to say he is his match? Why don't we join forces and eliminate him first? I agree. If we don't kick Zhongli out first, none of us will have a chance to stand till the end. Voices continued to come from all directions. With the help of elemental perception, Chu Chen could clearly hear the whispers of the surrounding players. He looked up and found that the people nearby were gradually forming an encirclement, trying to trap him in the middle. With dozens of people fighting, there's a high probability that the other players will join forces to kill the strongest person first. FK. So this is how they target us. It's over, I've already placed my bet. In the audience, many people also noticed this situation. Many of them have already placed their bets on Chu Chen. After all, although his previous performance was strong, it was only reflected in strength. Among the other players, there are many different categories, such as summoner, control, support, and healing. If different categories cooperate with each other, the power exerted is definitely not simply the addition. As a result, facing the joint encirclement and suppression of others, few people now believe that Chu Chen can stand to the end. Ha ha ha. Fortunately, I listened to the Clown Brothers' advice and didn't place the bet, otherwise I would have lost everything tonight. Me too, how lucky. Come on. Let me open a bet on who will be eliminated first. Who will come? I'll do it. I'll vote for Zhongli to be eliminated first. Everyone's joys and sorrows are different. At this moment, Mu Suihuang only felt that the surroundings were extremely noisy. Now, the stakes are no longer important to her. What she is most worried about is what Chu Chen can do under the joint siege of others. I declare that the game begins. As the voice of the hungry wolf sounded above, the whole audience suddenly became quiet, and everyone's eyes were focused on the game field. In today's competition, everyone just stays where they are. Buzz. But soon, the first person took action. He was a man wearing a tiger mask, and his hands were already wrapped in violent blue electric currents. Two powerful electric currents shot out from his hands, aiming directly at Chu Chen, who was in the center of the crowd. After the first person took action, all the others followed suit. Various elements emerged from these people, and they held weapons of various styles in their hands. After images whizzed across the field, and within a few breaths, several fast-awakened people came to Chu Chen's side. The weapons in their hands flashed a captivating cold light, just a millimeter away from his skin. However, how could Chu Chen not take action while letting these guys take action? Boom! The golden light shone through the mask in front of everyone's eyes, and the huge arena beneath everyone's feet began to shake again. This time the shaking was more violent than before. Boom! In just a moment, a huge rock hand suddenly stretched out from under Chu Chen's feet and lifted him up into the air more than 10 meters above the ground. Chu Chen folded his arms across his chest and looked down at the people below who were stunned by this sudden vision. 4 burly ancient Qunyan soldiers appeared around him, holding Qunyan spears weighing hundreds of pounds. A force that seemed to be able to destroy everything burst out from the tips of their spears and smashed towards the people below. Bang! In an instant, the ground that had just been repaired was cracked again. Huge dust once again filled the entire venue. The contestants who were closer to Chu Chen didn't even have time to think before they were thrown into the air by the rock spears. As their bodies fell heavily, they lost all their fighting ability in an instant. There was an earthquake. No, that giant hand. Could it be? Someone in the audience suddenly trembled all over. Chapter 29. The wind and sand soon dissipated. However, what was presented to the audience again was a very tragic scene. With Chu Chen's feet as the center, the area within a radius of 100 meters has completely collapsed, leaving only a huge black pit. Countless huge cracks are spreading around this pit with the hole as the center. It extended all the way to the end of the playing field in all directions. If it weren't for the protection of a layer of light blue protective shield, it would have directly affected the audience seats. For a moment, almost everyone gasped. All the materials used to cast the competition venue were specially processed and had precision alloys that were hundreds of times stronger than ordinary materials. However, although it was made of such a hard material, it was destroyed so horribly in front of Chu Chen. Seeing such a powerful force, the entire audience was silent. However, this atmosphere was soon broken. That Zhongli is the special sequence. Heaven-level Chu Chen. A scream from a man wearing a Pruchna mask in the audience instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the silent atmosphere. What? Is it the Chu Chen who just awakened the day before yesterday? Are you crazy? He has only been awakened for a few days. How could he have such horrific destructive power? Special sequence. Heaven level. A heated discussion instantly broke out in the audience. After all, with Chu Chen's current fame, he was already well known in Yunhai City. That's right. Absolutely right. Yesterday our team went to hunt monsters outside the forest east of the city, and I saw it with my own eyes. It was just such a giant rock hand. The man wearing the Pruchna mask shouted loudly, and was so excited that even his exposed skin turned red. However, not many people believed his words, because most people still found it hard to imagine that just after awakening for a few days, one could possess such terrifying power. Even if he is at the heaven level, it shouldn't be so exaggerated. This is the common inner thought of most people. No. You must believe me. You must believe me. Seeing that most people around him were skeptical of him, the Pruchna man continued to shout with all his might. But before he could finish his words, someone covered his mouth and warned him, "Is this your first time here? No matter who that person is, you must not point out his real identity here." As he spoke, he took off the Pruchna mask on the man's face and dragged him out of the fighting arena. Without the man's shouting, the audience fell silent again. Although most people did not believe what the man had just said, when they looked at Chu Chen again, they had some different thoughts in their minds. The sounds from the audience outside the stadium naturally reached Chu Chen's ears. However, he didn't care about his identity being exposed. After all, in this age where cameras are everywhere, it is not difficult to trace the source and investigate a person's identity. Now I'm giving all of you a chance. The rock condensed into a long spear and was held in Chu Chen's hand. He jumped high from the giant rock hand and landed on the ground outside the pit. In front of him were the other surviving contestants, but now these people could only stand there in a daze, no longer daring to make any rash moves. Holding a rock gun, Chu Chen walked towards the remaining people. "Just give up now and you can avoid physical pain." He walked slowly, and every step he took seemed to step on the hearts of the contestants in front of him, causing them to tremble all over. Wearing a black and gold mask, Chu Chen's boundless murderous aura is clearly displayed. At this moment, whether inside or outside the field, everyone could only watch Chu Chen strolling leisurely. Although in the eyes of outsiders, this looks more like the god of death taking your life. I give up." It was not until Chu Chen slowly walked up to the first person that the man spoke with almost a crying voice. As he spoke, he threw away the weapon in his hand and took off the nameplate he was wearing. Then, an extremely strange scene appeared before everyone's eyes. Whenever Chu Chen walked in front of a contestant, that contestant would immediately surrender with his hands and declare his withdrawal. He waited until he had walked past everyone and reached the end of the arena, and no one dared to object. At this point, all the contestants except Chu Chen gave up the competition. This is FG. The audience in the auditorium all shook their heads secretly. This is definitely a scene that has never been seen since the opening of the underground fighting arena. It is a legend worthy of being recorded in the history of the fighting arena and passed down from generation to generation in future competitions. As they looked at each other, helplessness was revealed in their eyes. "Hey! Announce the results." Chu Chen was very satisfied with the performance of the other contestants. He waved and shouted towards the platform above. The champion of this year's competition has been announced. No, Zhongli won the final victory. As for the remaining contestants, although you have announced your withdrawal, you can still continue to compete for the second and third place. The top 10 will also receive rewards." Garu's stuttering voice once again spread throughout the sky above the fighting arena. As for the remaining contestants who could continue to compete for ranking, they still needed to wait a while. However, the announcement of the result once again stirred the emotions of the audience, and fierce cheers broke out again. Zhongli! Zhongli! Is he the Chu Chen? Who cares? Zhongli is awesome! Listening to the cheers from the audience, Chu Chen nodded slightly. In this world, I have not disgraced Prince Yan's reputation as a leisurely wanderer in the mortal world. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the first legendary mission. The mission reward will be unlocked for the host. At the same time, the system prompt in my mind sounded again. Hearing this, Chu Chen's face lit up. Why did he come here to participate in the competition? Wasn't it just for this legendary mission? Then, he felt that the rock element in his body suddenly increased dramatically, and the strength in his body was flowing at a very fast speed. A powerful force suddenly surged into my body. Ding! Experience rewards are issued. Host's current level, LV 15. He had not expected that a legendary quest would give so much experience. Perhaps it was because of his current low level, the experience rewarded by the system actually allowed Chu Chen to directly reach level 15. That is to say, he has reached the middle stage of the second level Kaiwan realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Grand God Star *1. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining God Fragment *1. Chapter 30. Rocks are the bones of the 6 directions 1 life unlock effect. The strength of the rock ridges created by the host's condensation of the Earth's core is increased. At the same time, the number of rock ridges that can be created is no longer limited. It depends on the energy limit in the host's body. The host can create multiple rock ridges at the same time. Bigger, stronger, more, the host's rock talent is enhanced, and the strength of all rock-based creations condensed from it will be additionally improved. On the virtual panel that only Chu Chen could see, the unlocked constellation attributes were listed in detail in front of him. Same as in the game, but different. In the game, the number of ridges that can be created at the same time can only be increased to 2, but now the ridges he can create are not limited to 2. Depending on the amount of energy in his body, he can summon multiple ridges at the same time. In other words, as his realm improves, the energy in his body continues to increase, and he can bear more consumption, so the number of rock ridges he can create at the same time will increase, and there will be no upper limit to this number, until all the energy in Chu Chen's body is exhausted. Moreover, the strength of the ridge itself has also been improved. Compared with his previous ridge, it will become longer, thicker, and stronger. What's also worth noting for Chu Chen is that unlocking 1 life also adds an extra ability, and his rock talent is further enhanced. All rock-type creations that can be created will gain additional enhancements, and these rock-type creations naturally include weapons condensed from rocks, giant hands, the ancient Thousand Rock Army, and so on. Of course, perhaps it also includes Tianxing. Feeling the rapidly increasing power in his body, Chu Chen couldn't help but look up at the flashing lights and cheers around him. After all, this world is too small for him to display his abilities. Mr. Zhongli, please follow me to the backstage to claim your reward. A staff member wearing a fox mask walked up to him at some point and spoke respectfully. Under the guidance of the staff, Chu Chen's figure gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. And soon after he left. Boom! The giant rock hand and the Thousand Rock Army that Chu Chen originally created on the field collapsed instantly. Seeing this scene, the remaining players on the field breathed a sigh of relief. The scary guy finally left. They looked at each other and began to think about how to compete for the top 9 spots. The staff led Chu Chen around the backstage, turning left and right, and finally stopped in front of 2 elegant doors. The 2 doors seemed to be made of high-quality mahogany, with all kinds of exquisite patterns carved on them. The staff pushed open the door first and said carefully, "Mr. Zhongli, please come in." As soon as he entered the room, Chu Chen found that there were masked staff members neatly lined up on both sides of the room. Their masks and attire were very uniform. When they saw him come in, they all bowed to him, showing great respect. In front of Chu Chen, there stood a hunched old man wearing a mask that looked like a basalt. He walked up to him with a smile and handed him a scroll with golden runes and a red card. "Mr. Zhongli, this is your champion's reward, which is an S-level martial arts skill and a gold card with a storage value of 50 million. S-level martial arts." Chu Chen took the 2 items from the old man. The quality of martial arts was basically consistent with the talent classification of the awakeners. An S-level martial arts was already the best among ordinary martial arts, and its market price ranged from tens of millions to 100 million. Moreover, most of them are in short supply and are considered very precious. But for Chu Chen, it is of no value at all, because the so-called martial arts is to cultivate one's body so as to perform more powerful moves. But after he unlocked the talent of the Rock King, the Eternal Rock has endowed him with the most extreme physique. The improvement that martial arts brought him was far less rapid and better than upgrading himself. As for the 50 million, the amount of money no longer means much to Chu Chen. However, at least he won't be a social loser who eats and takes things for free and asks others to pay for their food. In that case, I will leave first. Chu Chen doesn't care about the rewards of the underground fighting competition. He participates in the competition mainly to complete the legendary mission. Now that he had obtained all the rewards, he turned around and was about to leave. Mr. Zhong, Mr. Zhongli, please wait a moment. The hunchbacked old man suddenly shouted. As usual, after the competition is over, we will hold a public awards ceremony for you. No need. Before the old man finished speaking, Chu Chen interrupted him. Just remember that this year's champion is Zhongli. After saying that, he left the room without looking back. The old man still stood stiffly in the same place until his figure completely disappeared from everyone's sight. After a long while, he slowly said, Zhongli, Chu Chen. Returning along the same path he came from, Chu Chen gradually walked out of the underground and returned to the ground again. Naturally, many staff members came forward and wanted to lead the way along the way, but he directly refused them all. When they reached the exit, Mu Suihuang had been standing there waiting for a long time. You. Mu Suihuang opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. Let's go home first, it's too noisy here. Chu Chen spread his hands, the music in the bar on the surface was still so deafening. It was already late at night, and the two figures moved away from the colorful lights of the bar and disappeared into the dark night. On the way back, they did not choose to take a taxi. It seemed that they were just taking a walk after dinner. There was no one else on the deserted street. They walked until 2:30 in the morning before returning downstairs. Call. Chu Chen took off the mask that carried the murderous power and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. It's a bit stuffy wearing a mask all the time. The cool night breeze blew slowly, ruffling the ends of his hair. The bright moonlight poured down, illuminating Chu Chen's now otherworldly face. His smooth, fair face was filled with a cool, angular look, and in his dark eyes, a hint of dark gold could be vaguely seen. The moonlight seemed to add a bit of mystery to this face. Compared with the murderous look when wearing the mask, after taking off the mask, a hint of gentleness was revealed. This was Mu Suihuang's first feeling at the moment. She only felt that she was familiar yet unfamiliar with Chu Chen in front of her. If you take off your mask now, it will be recorded by the surveillance camera. She asked dully. It doesn't matter. Our identities have already been exposed. Everyone is just pretending to be confused. Chu Chen said as he handed over the mask. Chapter 31. After unlocking the panel of the Rock King Emperor, as Chu Chen's level continues to increase, his temperament will also be in line with the Emperor. Today, Chu Chen can inadvertently exude a faint aura of a king. This kind of momentum is more obvious during battle. Seeing Chu Chen handing the mask back, Mu Suihan shook his head and refused, you can keep this mask. No one else is qualified to own it except you. Also, I won't ask too much about what happened tonight. I'm very happy to see that you have such a strong power. Anyway, it's too late, let's all go to bed early. Mu Suihuang's tone was very low. This night, she clearly felt the huge difference between herself and Chu Chen. It also made her realize that they would be on two completely different paths in the future. Chu Chen and I will eventually be people from two different worlds. One day, Chu Chen will step into the divine realm and become the most admired genius by everyone. And she could only look up silently among the crowd. Thinking back to when I was showing off my progress over the past 2 days in front of Chu Chen during the day, I felt really ashamed. Chu Chen was also stunned by Mu Suihuang's reaction. It was the first time that he felt lonely in this lively girl. He naturally knew why Mu Suihuang felt this way, because the gap was too big. Talent is something that will become more obvious as time goes by. But after thinking for a long time, Chu Chen said softly, I have heard that among the only 20 remaining God-level masters in Zhuzhu today, half of them do not have special sequence talents, and there is even one whose talent is only ordinary sequence D level. This world is very cruel. In the eyes of the public, talent often determines a person's upper limit. Different starting points determine different heights a person can reach. But there are also many awakened people with ordinary qualifications who do not believe in fate and do things even though they know it is impossible. These people often need to put in 1,000 times more effort to get a tiny bit of reward. Since we cannot determine our innate abilities, we can only work hard to achieve our innate abilities, using quantitative changes to bring about qualitative changes. Perhaps after putting in so much effort, we can only barely reach the starting point of others, but perhaps, we can still achieve what we cannot. I know that I shouldn't be the one saying these things, because in the eyes of outsiders, I am just making easy words when I say these things. But I still said it because I didn't want to see my friend so lonely. Chu Chen stopped talking. He believed that he was not a good talker, let alone a person who could comfort others. Then he took out the S-level martial arts and handed it back instead of the mask. Although I don't know what the future will be like, at least don't waste the present time. This is. The golden patterns emanating from the scroll showed its outstanding quality, and Mu Suihuang could naturally tell at a glance that this was an S-level martial art. Is this your championship reward? You idiot, don't you know how valuable S-level martial arts are? You. Before she could finish her words, Chu Chen directly stuffed the martial arts into Mu Suihuang's hands. Good night. See you tomorrow. After saying that, he went straight upstairs. Chu Chen didn't feel the slightest bit of regret in giving away an S-level martial art. Because the value of an item is not determined by its own value, but by how much value it can bring to itself. The S-level martial arts itself is of inestimable value and is a rare and invaluable existence, but for Chu Chen, it is of no use to him at all. Although he could sell it for a very high price, he was not short of money. So this S-level martial arts scroll is not valuable in his opinion, but it is very precious to other awakeners such as Mu Suihuang. Since it is useless to himself but of great use to others, why should he let it go to waste in his hands? After returning home, Chu Chen went straight to the bathroom to wash up, and then suddenly remembered that after he completed this legendary mission, in addition to the reward of the Life Star, there seemed to be another reward called God Fragment. When I opened the system panel again, I saw a crystal fragment with colorful fluorescence lying quietly in the system space. This fragment is about the size of a thumb and does not have any specific properties. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the first legendary mission. The system will give the host a preview of the new abilities that will be unlocked next. Just when Chu Chen was puzzled, the system's voice suddenly sounded. Immediately afterwards, Chu Chen felt his body and soul shake at the same time, and the next moment the scene in front of his eyes changed to a vast plain. It was clearly noon, but Chu Chen felt that everything was dark before his eyes. Looking back, he suddenly discovered that not far behind him, there was a huge beast tens of thousands of meters tall standing on the ground. From a distance, the giant beast looked like a huge mountain stretching between heaven and earth, with its huge head reaching into the clouds, and its massive body covered with huge jagged protrusions like steep rocks. Its huge body seemed to break the sky, emitting golden light, and an ancient aura sweeping in all directions. All living beings are just like ants in front of it. Ruoda. Dragon King. Chu Chen couldn't help but gasp. The giant beast in front of him was none other than the Dragon King Ruoda, who had accompanied the Rock King in his conquests during the Demon God War and had lived as long as the heaven and earth. He might have existed since the beginning of time. Roar! Chu Chen seemed to have attracted the other party's attention. The Rodra Dragon King suddenly looked up at the sky and roared. The huge sound made the heaven and earth tremble. If what Chu Chen saw before his eyes was not just a picture, he might have been knocked away. Boom! The next moment, above the earth, with the Dragon King Rudra as the center, 4 streams of energy of different colors surged from all directions and merged into its body. They symbolized the 4 elements of water, thunder, fire, and ice. In an instant, the sky and the earth became dark, and huge thunderbolts kept falling from the sky. Huge rocks carrying lava passed through the clouds and fell like dense raindrops. The landslides and the cracks of the earth. The scene in front of me gradually became blurred and returned to the appearance of my home. But there was already a hint of surprise in Chu Chen's eyes. A preview of a new ability that has been unlocked. Could it be that? Chu Chen recalled the system's previous words again. If the ability he was about to unlock was related to the scene just now. Could it be that it is related to the Dragon King Ruoda? Chapter 32. The Dragon King Ruoda was created by the crystallization of elements. Mountains and seas took shape, and the heaven and earth had the same lifespan. Possessing a terrifying power comparable to that of the Rock King. Forget it. Since it's a new ability that will be acquired soon, there's no point in thinking too much about it now. I might as well hurry up and upgrade my level. I'll know when the time comes. Chu Chen was too lazy to think about it any further. He was already feeling a little sleepy. I fell asleep in a daze. The next day when he woke up again, it was already around 10 o'clock in the morning. After Chu Chen simply washed up and ate something, he went straight outside. He needed to be somewhere because today was a special day. It is the day when new recruits join the army. After the awakening ceremony every year, it is time for the army to recruit soldiers. At this time, many newly awakened people will choose to enlist. Chu Chen had considered enlisting in the army, but the government had regulations that all awakeners of the special sequence could only choose to join the army after graduating from designated colleges and universities and reaching at least the 5th level of the overturning sea realm. After all, once you join the army, you will face the war on the front line. The government will never allow the awakened people with outstanding talents to go to the front line before they have the ability to stand on their own. If one accidentally dies on the battlefield, it will be a huge loss for the country. Therefore, the awakeners who choose to join the army every year are all ordinary sequence awakeners, and most of them have talents below level B. Because of their talents below level B, even if they choose to continue their studies, it would be difficult to find a good school for them to continue their training. Although joining the army is riskier, the military facilities and resources are outstanding and abundant. Moreover, personally experiencing the trials of war is a shortcut for the awakened to enhance their own strength more quickly. At this moment, outside the city of Yunhai, huge military armored vehicles have been lined up neatly. Thousands of awakened people who have joined the army have now put on military uniforms. From now on, they are soldiers. And near them, there was a crowded crowd coming to see them off. In today's era, everyone knows that without the army supporting the front line, the rear would not be so stable. So looking at the young faces of these new recruits, many people showed respect and reluctance in their eyes. Around these recruits stood teams of fully armed soldiers, whose mission was to escort these recruits to safety. Luo Zhongli was now also standing in the crowd in neat military uniform. As the captain of the army stationed in the rear, he looked at the young faces in front of him and couldn't help sighing in his heart. I wonder how many people will remember this farewell forever. As a soldier, he bid farewell to them with the highest respect, and also wanted to provide these young people with one last protection. Because of the appearance of the Church of All Races and the Bloodbat clan some time ago, there have been no follow-up clues in their investigation until now. Luo Zhongli had a vague feeling that he was afraid that these malicious guys were hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to sabotage. Especially today, the day of sending new recruits to battle, his ominous feeling became even more obvious. Although the army had sent people to protect these new recruits along the journey, Luo Zhongli did not dare to be careless at all. They must ensure that these new recruits can enter the barracks safely. Suddenly, Luo Zhongli thought of Chu Chen again. Recalling the scene of the desolate planet crashing into the earth that night, even he, a veteran from the front line, still felt a lingering fear. Only on the second day after awakening, he possessed such terrifying power. Is this a heavenly level monster? Well. Luo Zhongli sighed heavily. As a soldier, he only hoped that there would be more and more geniuses like Chu Chen, and that they would grow up faster and faster. After all, the weight that determines whether humanity can ultimately win lies in the hands of these people. Report. Everything is normal in the northeast direction. Report. Everything is normal in the southwest direction. Report. From time to time, reports could be heard from Luo Zhongli's communicator. They must remain fully alert and continuously investigate the situation around Yunhai City. Once there is any unusual movement, they must take precautions in advance. Cheer up and continue to explore the surrounding situation. If conditions permit, you can slightly expand the scope of exploration. Report any situation to me immediately. Luo Zhongli replied with a serious expression. Yes. A neat reply came instantly from the communicator. As time passed, this batch of new recruits was assembled. After each of them said goodbye to their families, this huge armored convoy was about to set off. But the closer it got to this moment, the more Luo Zhongli's brows trembled, and the ominous premonition in his heart became clearer and clearer. He couldn't help but clench his fists, as if to confirm his inner thoughts. Suddenly, a hurried call came from the communicator. Report. A beast riot has been discovered in the southwest. The target is heading towards the city. Please get ready immediately. Please get ready immediately. Report. Members of the 10,000 races cult have appeared outside the eastern part of the city. Request, sizzle. 2 emergency calls came from the communicator in succession, and the second one was cut off before the call was even finished. Whatever you fear will come true. Luo Zhenqi cursed angrily, then called out to everyone stationed nearby through the communicator, enemy attack. Everyone prepare for battle. His voice drowned out the noise in the place and was clearly heard by everyone. What? There's an enemy attack. Someone in the crowd screamed. Then, the ground beneath everyone's feet began to make slight noises, and a row of dark shadows appeared on the borderline in the distance. Colorful rays of light kept whistling in the distance, and the troops stationed there had already begun fighting. It's a beast tide. They're already fighting. Someone shouted loudly. Teams 1 and 2 are responsible for evacuating the new recruits and the masses to hide in the city. Other teams, prepare for battle. We must stop the beast tide outside the city. Luo Zhenqi grasped the weapon in his hand without hesitation, and led the way towards the beast tide fiercely. Chapter 33. Call. The sky was filled with howling winds. It was originally noon, but at this moment the sky was already covered with dark clouds. In the outskirts of Yunhai City, in addition to the riot of beasts on the distant horizon, faint whimpering sounds began to be heard from closer places. Evil spirit. Looking at the strange phenomenon in the sky, Luo Zhenqi frowned. Evil spirits are a kind of alien race. Their biggest characteristic is weirdness. Evil spirits are erratic, unpredictable, and difficult to deal with. Is it really premeditated? Luo Zhenqi suddenly felt something was wrong. It was not that the evil spirits that were omnipresent were very strong individually, but the evil spirits were extremely cunning. He was afraid that they would infiltrate the rear while most of the troops were at the front resisting the beast tide. Captain Luo. Just when his brows were furrowed, a calm female voice suddenly came from the communicator. Luo Zhenqi immediately recognized that it was Mo Suihan's voice. I will be in charge of defending the city against those evil spirits. You don't need to be distracted. There was no emotion in the voice, but it revealed an unquestionable momentum. Luo Zhenqi then remembered that they still had a 6th level star-picking realm expert here. As a result, the encouragement in his heart completely dissipated, and his fighting spirit was rekindled. He shouted to the nearby army, everyone must not relax at all. We must do our best to kill these beasts outside the city. The weapon in Luo Zhenqi's hand was a huge alloy battle axe, and the axe blade was shining with a creepy cold light. He took the lead, roaring loudly and charging towards the tide of beasts in front. This beast tide is different from the last beast tide riot outside the forest. Both in terms of number and strength, it is incomparable to ordinary beast tides. So he could no longer sit in the rear, he had to take action and try his best to minimize the damage to the team. But at the same time, Luo Zhenqi also found that the ominous premonition in his heart became more intense. Chu Chen was standing on the alloy city wall that was 100 meters high. There are sophisticated defense cannons mounted on the city walls, and now the walls are also full of soldiers responsible for operating these cannons. No one had any objection to Chu Chen's arrival, because news of Chu Chen's strength had already spread to the ears of everyone in the garrison. In their eyes, Chu Chen was no longer a child who had just reached adulthood, but a warrior who, like them, could defend his country. Chu Chen was gazing far into the distance. He saw that on the very distant horizon, most of the troops had already begun a head-on attack on the beast tide. And at his feet, not far outside the city wall, there were densely packed monsters with black shadows and unknown postures wandering around. They are evil spirits, and from time to time they let out eerie and terrifying grins. The garrison troops have also launched an attack on these evil spirits, but these evil spirits seem to have no entity and they can freely burrow into the ground to avoid attacks. If the city's alloy walls were not made of special materials and there was not a layer of barrier underneath the ground specifically to prevent the enemy's underground attacks, they would have been able to drill directly through the walls and enter the city. These evil spirits seemed to be deliberately delaying time. They were not in a hurry to launch an attack. Instead, they were drilling around everywhere, constantly emitting miserable laughter from their mouths, as if they were mocking them. The evil spirits' laughter is very harsh, and it seems to be able to stir up people's emotions and make them angry. Chu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, and the next moment, he grasped the white tassel spear in his hand, and then jumped down from the city wall. The rock element attached to the surface of the spear, and the whole person turned into a golden meteor, falling downwards. Boom! In an instant, a huge force was centered on the landing point, and all the evil spirits within a radius of hundreds of meters were directly killed. The evil spirits didn't have time to react at all before they turned into smoke and dissipated. The surviving evil spirits in the distance were frightened by the scene and started shouting loudly. Then they burrowed into the ground in an attempt to hide. If it were an ordinary awakened person, this might be a headache, but for Chu Chen, these evil spirits escaping into the underground are just seeking their own death. Rise! As the elemental power in his body burst out, thick rock ridges instantly broke out of the ground nearby. The volume of the rock ridges today is much larger than before. The ripples are spreading rapidly in all directions. The direct vibrations of multiple rock ridges have caused resonance. The multiple ripples overlap with each other, and the powerful impact force instantly crushes all the evil spirits that have escaped into the ground into powder. The people on the city wall were stunned after seeing the scene below. They did not expect that the most difficult evil spirit could be wiped out so easily by Chu Chen. Although they already had an estimate of Chu Chen's current strength in their hearts, what they saw with their own eyes now was still far beyond their expectations. After killing these insignificant evil spirits, Chu Chen looked towards the surging tide of beasts in the distance. In his eyes, these enemies were no longer vicious beasts, but densely packed experience packs. But just a few hundred meters above Chu Chen, there was a small crow hidden in the darkness and constantly wandering. The crow's pair of scarlet eyes were staring at him, and a strange light appeared in its pupils. Somewhere in a dark cave the scene in the crow's eyes was projected into a virtual picture standing in the center of the cave. Today, this cave is crowded with people in black robes. These black robes formed circles one after another, and in the center was an enchanting woman in a red robe. She looked at Chu Chen's figure in the picture, and a wicked smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "Oh, the target has appeared. Do you want to take action now?" A hoarse voice came from the man in black robe beside him. "Well, why not?" The woman licked her lips gently. There was no lipstick on her scarlet lips, but traces of bright red blood. "The longer you delay, the more things will go wrong. We can take advantage of this opportunity to temporarily block Yunhai City. Please ask that sir to go and hold back the 6th level awakener first. I will, come and meet this guy in person." In the beast tide, Luo Zhenqi took the lead and rushed into the encirclement of the giant beasts alone. The alloy battle axe in his hand was covered with dense thunder. As his hands whistled, a movie of lightning was set off. Anyone affected within a radius of several hundred meters would instantly collapse and turn into a pool of splattered flesh and blood. In just a few breaths, hundreds of magical beasts fell under his battle axe. Luo Zhenqi, who usually keeps his composure, looks no different from an ordinary uncle, but once he stands on the battlefield, he will be enveloped by a strong murderous intent, which is intimidating. Chapter 34. Kill. The surrounding soldiers fought bravely under the leadership of Luo Zhenqi, and they successfully stopped the advance of the beast tide that was originally coming with great force. If that were the case, these beasts would be completely wiped out in just over 10 minutes. But, why do I have a growing ominous feeling in my heart? Luo Zhenqi chopped off the head of a monster that looked like a mammoth with one axe. Their warriors were unstoppable and had now destroyed half of the beasts. But for some reason, seeing that the beast tide showed signs of receding, Luo Zhenqi not only did not feel the slightest bit of joy in his heart, but instead became increasingly uneasy. "Everyone, stay alert and don't let your guard down." Luo Zhenqi did not dare to be careless at all. The dark clouds piled up above their heads made them feel so depressed that they could hardly breathe. Bang! Bang! At this moment, from several distant directions, several bright flares suddenly rose into the sky and exploded. The brilliant light represents a signal for help. More waves of beasts began to pour in from all directions. "Damn it! Everyone gather outside the city immediately. We must narrow the area and do our best to prevent these beasts from rushing into the city." Luo Zhenqi gave orders into the communicator in a rage. It really never ends, more enemies begin to attack. There is no point in continuing to expand the isolation line, as it will easily expose weak points and be breached by the beast tide. It would be better for them to gather together immediately. Given the current situation, they naturally cannot choose to attack, they can only defend. Bang! At this moment, the ground under Luo Zhenqi's feet suddenly roared. A huge purple-black arm suddenly stretched out from the ground and grabbed towards him. "Damn it!" Thunder flashed in Luo Zhenqi's eyes, and attached to the battle axe, condensing into a huge thunder axe. As he swung it with both hands, a huge lightning light of hundreds of meters was drawn in an instant. The lightning roared and struck the giant hand, blocking the attack of the arm. Everyone retreat immediately. While Luo Zhenqi was giving orders, he continued to wave more lightning as cover. Sizzle. Suddenly, the temperature around rose sharply, and violent black flames rose from the ground. The fierce tongues of fire rushed into the crowd, instantly taking away a large number of lives. The scattered black flames gathered again and condensed into a burning human figure. As soon as the figure took shape, 2 beams of light emitting a terrifying aura instantly shot out from his 2 arms. The target was pointing in the direction where Luo Zhenqi was. Faced with such a sudden attack, Luo Zhenqi widened his eyes and tried to rely on his battle axe to block the attack again. Boom! However, before the 2 beams of light reached him, streaks of dark green sword energy instantly slashed out from behind and collided head-on with the beams of light. A powerful impact force began to explode in all directions. Luo Zhenqi did not dare to hesitate at all and immediately moved away from the range of the explosion. For a moment, the air was filled with smoke, and only a huge pit remained where it was, which was shocking. Mo Suihan's figure appeared beside Luo Zhenqi at some point, and the sword light just now was naturally her work. Commissioner Mo? You are not. Luo Zhenqi wanted to ask Mo Suihan why he suddenly came to the front line since he was in charge of the rear. There is a more reliable person guarding the rear. Captain Luo, you should go back and resist the other enemies. This guy is not someone you can handle. Mo Suihan's face was cold and solemn, his eyes staring straight at the flaming figure not far away, as if facing a formidable enemy. As a person who was at the star-picking realm could be so cautious, Luo Zhenqi soon understood that the monster formed by the black flames was definitely not weaker than those at the star-picking realm. Commissioner Mo, you better be careful. Without any hesitation, under the cover of Mo Suihan, Luo Zhenqi rushed to the rear. After all, the battle between the star-picking realm was not something he could interfere with. Staying there would not only fail to provide any help, but might even drag down Mo Suihan. His biggest responsibility now is to resist the enemies near the city walls and prevent them from entering the city. However, when Luo Zhenqi rushed back to the city wall again, he realized that he had been worrying too much, and he also understood who the reliable person that Mo Suihan mentioned was. Tens of thousands of magical beasts swarmed in from all directions, but even with such a huge formation, there was one person who managed to intercept nearly half of them. Luo Zhenqi only saw a densely packed number of thick stone pillars standing in the raging beast tide. These stone pillars emitted golden light, and waves of brilliant ripples continued to spread in the beast tide. Wherever the ripples reached, the weaker monsters exploded instantly, and flesh and blood flew in all directions. Chu Chen was standing on one of the stone pillars, with the jade shield surrounding him and the white tassel spear in his hand, just quietly overlooking the surrounding monsters being smashed one after another. Just like a king on inspection, everything is under his control. However, Luo Zhenqi also discovered that Chu Chen seemed to be whispering, 3,000, 6,500, 10,000. Vaguely calculating something. However, he solved half of the beast tide crisis by himself. Even if the remaining monsters managed to escape Chu Chen's attack, they would be reduced to ashes by the cannons on the city walls and the attacks of other soldiers. It's only been a few days, how come this kid's strength has increased so much? Luo Zhenqi roared in disbelief in his heart. He found that Chu Chen's growth could not be viewed in the same way as common sense. But more than that, it's peace of mind. After all, Chu Chen possesses such powerful strength, the pressure on their side can be relieved a lot. For a while, because of the almost abnormal existence of Chu Chen, no matter how the beasts surrounded them from all directions, they could not break through at all. In this way, there is no need to worry about the rear for the time being, but now we have to worry about Mo Suihan. At this moment, she was entangled with the monster whose body was wrapped in black flames. The fight between the two was no longer confined to the surface, they were flying high in the sky in the distance. The dark green light and the black flames kept leaving traces in the air. From time to time, the two would collide heavily, then separate and collide again. This cycle continued over and over again, and Luo Zhenqi had no idea what the situation was over there. Roar! Just when the people near the city wall breathed a sigh of relief, a sharp roar suddenly came from above their heads. Then, one saw a pair of huge black fleshy wings extending in the air, and a monster with a hideous face hovering in the sky. Behind it, a group of beasts with wings were swarming in. Chapter 35. Tisk. Has the air raid started? In an instant, countless artillery fire and energy began to fly towards the monsters in the air. Boom, boom. But the changes did not stop there. Pieces of pitch-black darkness, as dark as shadows, with only 2 red eyes vaguely visible, began to cover the surrounding horizon and surge towards them like a swarm of carp crossing the river. The real attack begins now. Activate the energy barrier, everyone else follow me. Luo Zhenqi didn't have time to hesitate. After giving the order into the communicator, he rushed forward again, waving the battle axe in his hand. A nearly transparent protective barrier rose on the city wall at the rear. The barrier was in the shape of a semicircle and inverted above the entire Yunhai city to prevent attacks from monsters flying in the air. It is just that the energy required to activate the protective barrier covering a city in an instant is naturally enormous. If the enemy's attack cannot be repelled in a short period of time, this barrier will dissipate due to lack of energy. Therefore, most people's first target of attack was the monsters in the air. Compared with attacks on the ground, attacks from the air were more deadly. Suddenly, Luo Zhenqi felt something was wrong. It was as if the ominous premonition in his heart suddenly burst out, and he couldn't help but look back. The troops stationed there were from other military regions who came to escort new recruits, but suddenly some people in the army behaved very strangely. A chill that penetrated deep into his bones suddenly rose up. Luo Zhenqi saw that these people suddenly stopped their weapons and no longer attacked the enemy. One of them seemed to have noticed Luo Zhenqi's gaze, and he suddenly smiled at him. It was a contemptuous and mocking smile. The next moment, these people suddenly turned their spears around and rushed towards the other soldiers nearby who were focusing on the foreign enemies. Careful! Luo Zhenqi roared. Now he finally understood why these alien races and monsters wanted to take advantage of the day when the new recruits were enrolled to launch an attack. It turned out that they had already planted a spy in the troops that came to support them. We are just waiting for the cooperation from both inside and outside to try to make them have problems from within first. In an instant, the situation changed drastically. No one expected that there would be so many internal enemies. Or rather, some people did expect that there would be so many of them. Colorful lights began to appear on those people's bodies. They took the lead in launching the attack, catching the enemy off guard. Luo Zhenqi also saw one of them tear open his coat, revealing a technological item emitting a metallic glow. It was a second-level bomb, enough to cause fatal damage in a small area. He wanted to stop it, but it was too late because the enemies outside had already rushed up. A hole. Just when Luo Zhenqi was unable to take care of both ends, a stream of light suddenly jumped out. It was a spear made of molten rock, which pierced the man's head in an instant, making it impossible for him to detonate the bomb. Immediately afterwards, Chu Chen's figure suddenly flashed beside the man's body, tore the bomb off his body, and then threw it towards the monsters in the air. The bomb exploded in the air, instantly blowing down the bodies of many monsters. They actually planted the enemy inside the military. Chu Chen frowned. The sudden internal turmoil also caught him off guard. Just as he was about to deal with these traitors, a dark shadow as black as ink suddenly appeared under his feet. These black shadows instantly extended in all directions and transformed into a pitch-black space, completely enveloping Chu Chen. All of a sudden, all the noise, the sounds of fighting, and the sounds of gunfire disappeared, leaving only silence. What kind of field is this? Space. Chu Chen frowned slightly, and a red shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. It was a woman in a red robe, with long red hair hanging down from her hood, revealing only half of her face, which looked strangely pale. The woman slowly raised her head, revealing a pair of eyes, one yellow and one white, which turned out to be a pair of heterochromatic pupils. The pair of eyes were fixed on Chu Chen, and the woman's mouth cracked into a smile. You are from the Church of All Races? Wearing a red robe? It seems that your status is not low. Chu Chen spoke slowly. He had heard that there was also a strict hierarchy within the Church of All Races, which could be seen mainly from their robes. The black robes belong to the lowest and most common believers, and there are other colors above them. Chu Chen was not clear about the specific level, but the red robes clearly showed that he had a higher status than ordinary believers. Yeah, this guy seems to have some knowledge of our church, the woman finally spoke, but there was a hint of teasing in her words. She continued, actually, little brother, I've heard of your name before. I only saw you on the news before. I was amazed by your appearance at that time. I didn't expect that you would be even more handsome in person. Are you interested in joining the church? With your strength and qualifications, you can directly become the highest level in our church. I see. Before the woman could finish her words, Chu Chen shot her in the throat. However, he did not expect that the woman's figure seemed virtual. The tip of his gun passed through the woman's body but could not cause any harm to her. "Brother, why are you so violent? I want to have a good chat with you." The woman suddenly put her face in front of Chu Chen and licked her lips with her scarlet tongue. "Besides, this is someone else's territory. You don't want to please me, but instead want to kill me. It really makes me sad. Besides, my life is nothing. As long as you join the church, I can give you my people." The woman wanted to take a step closer, but before she could finish her words, she only heard a low moan. Chu Chen's body was surrounded by golden light, and the jade shield took shape instantly. The moment the elements condensed, the impact force generated directly forced the woman back. Could it be that this guy can only avoid entities but is not immune to the influence of elements? Realizing this, Chu Chen seemed to have found a way out. Wow, what a beautiful shield! It's simply a work of art. However, he never expected that the woman was attracted by the Yuzhong shield. A scorching light flashed in her eyes, and she wanted to throw herself onto the shield. In order to confirm his idea, the rock element instantly condensed on the tip of the white tasseled spear. Chu Chen lightly picked up the spear and stabbed at the woman again. Sure enough, this time with the blessing of the elements, the woman's face changed slightly, and she retreated backwards in an instant. Chapter 36. What a pity! The woman dodged Chu Chen's attack and retreated several dozen meters in front of him. I don't know when she took out a purple-black long sword in her hand, and 3 pairs of black and white wings appeared behind her. "Brother, do you know that there are different divisions within the Church of all races? Different believers worship different races, and we worship the fallen gods, who can be called gods among all races." Purple patterns began to appear in the woman's eyes. These patterns were mysterious and gorgeous, and seemed to be able to captivate the soul, making it hard to forget them after just one glance. "We are all the faithful believers of the fallen god. When mankind's reckless resistance collapses, the fallen god will send down an oracle and make us the new gods of the future. And you, a fellow who overestimates your own capabilities. You gave up the chance to become a true god and cling to the body of a mortal. This will only allow you to watch helplessly as the myriad races of the future descend upon the world, and you will bow down and become slaves." The woman's tone became more and more crazy, and the sword in her hand began to emit strange energy fluctuations. Without any skill, she slashed directly towards Chu Chen. Clang! The long sword hit Yu Zhang's shield heavily, but it only caused a slight ripple. The next moment, the powerful recoil force pushed the woman's body back again. There was a flash of surprise in the woman's eyes. She obviously didn't expect Chu Chen's shield to be so strong. The attack she had been determined to make could not shake it at all. Chu Chen's attack came again. The golden gun shadow was like a swimming dragon, and the dense attacks made her unable to avoid it. The woman had to hold the sword in front of her to protect herself. The powerful force of the sword hitting her wrist made her wrist ache slightly. As expected of a heaven-level title. This time, the woman's voice was cold and emotionless. With a wave of the 3 pairs of wings behind her, she instantly flew into the air, and the sword in her hand drew purple sword beams in the darkness. The sword beams intertwined with each other, gradually forming a pattern of a pair of eyes above Chu Chen's head. At the same time, the woman's pair of heterochromatic eyes both emitted dazzling light, and burst out with the pattern of eyes in the air. In an instant, a strange feeling appeared in Chu Chen's heart. Hey? Glowing eyes? It's a bluff, it seems everyone can do that. Facing the woman's strange eyes, Chu Chen's eyes suddenly appeared with golden light. Just a glance, the woman's pupils suddenly shrank. She felt a sense of majesty that could not be violated from Chu Chen's eyes. That feeling was like the presence of a supreme being, like the Emperor of God descending to the world or the Emperor himself. The breath of the supreme being extinguished the light in her pupils. The woman's figure froze in midair for a moment. Seizing this opportunity, Chu Chen stabbed out with a gun. Puff! Without any obstruction, the tip of the gun pierced directly into the woman's chest. The intense pain made her come to her senses. When she saw the spear stuck in her chest, a trace of anger appeared on the woman's pale face. Visible to the naked eye, the originally inky black space around seemed to have become lighter. It seems that as long as I kill you, this space will collapse directly. Noticing this change, Chu Chen's attacks became more fierce, and the dense gun shadows whizzed towards the woman. Sensing a strong sense of danger, the woman no longer dared to confront him head-on. She disappeared from the spot in an illusory manner and reappeared in another direction dozens of meters away. After all, it was still within her space, and the woman's movements were particularly ghostly. I want to see where you can run to. Under the explosion of Chu Chen's elemental energy, huge rock ridges appeared in the space. Each rock ridge would block one of the woman's escape directions. The elements between the multiple rock ridges vibrated, and the golden ripples overlapped and spread, gradually forming a dense and indiscriminate attack area. In an instant, the entire space was supported by a rock ridge, and the spreading golden ripples completely covered the ground of this space. Out of desperation, the woman had to wave her wings and fly in the air, and Chu Chen immediately forged a number of rock spears and shot them towards the woman. Although it was clearly her own territory, the woman could only flee in panic, avoiding Chu Chen's attack. Instead, he was standing on a rock ridge calmly, wondering who was the real owner of this space. Chu Chen had thought about releasing the heavenly star to destroy this space, but he was not sure whether he would still be in the original place after the space was destroyed. You have to know that he was originally standing near the city wall, and the energy exploded by the falling stars would definitely continue to spread around after the space was destroyed. Although he can control this power so as not to cause harm to his friends, it is unavoidable for buildings. That is to say, once the heavenly star is summoned to destroy this space, and Chu Chen is still near the city wall, the damage caused by the explosion of the heavenly star will inevitably cause great damage to the city wall and the protective barrier. The only thing I'm afraid of is that the enemy won't break through my defense line and will blow up my own home first. Thinking of this, Chu Chen raised his gun and dodged, chasing after the woman. And outside boom, the sound of intense energy explosions continued. Luo Zhongli split the bodies of a group of monsters with one axe. The rumbling thunder continued above his battle axe, which was extremely exciting. At this time, his face was gradually turning pale and his breathing became rapid. Now most of the monsters flying in the air have been destroyed, but in front of them, the distant horizon is still covered by endless black shadows. And those guys who were planted inside obviously showed up with the awareness of certain death. Some were killed by them at the first opportunity, and some were completely blended into the chaotic battlefield and disappeared without a trace. But what worries Luo Zhongli more now is the sudden disappearance of Chu Chen. For some unknown reason, Chu Chen's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. However, the fierce attack of the enemy had already made Luo Zhongli himself unable to take care of himself, and high in the sky, Mo Sui Han and the figure condensed by black flames were still fighting hard. It seemed that the enemy had already made sufficient preparations and was restraining the high-level combat power of both sides. The other side wanted to use the huge human wave tactics to continuously consume them. Although they fought hard and gradually pushed the enemy's raids away from the city walls, the human flesh and blood body had its limits after all. The long battle had caused many people to become exhausted, and in order to relieve the pressure on others, Luo Zhongli would try to eliminate the high-level fighters among the enemies every time he attacked. As a result, his injuries became more serious. Where are the reinforcements? Haven't the reinforcements from other cities arrived yet? Luo Zhongli shouted loudly into the communicator. Report. Several surrounding cities were attacked by these guys at the same time. There are no extra troops nearby to support us. Now they are transferring troops from other areas, but it will take some time. An equally anxious voice came from the communicator. FK it. Okay, I get it. Luo Zhongli took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. Chapter 37. The enemy's attack came again. Without time to think, Luo Zhongli jumped out of the defense line again with the battle axe in hand, and raised the battle axe high above his head with both hands. Boom! Thick bolts of lightning fell from the black clouds in the sky and attached themselves to the blade of his axe. Kill! Seeing that the enchantment was successful, this time the thunder attack was particularly violent. Luo Zhongli shouted loudly and rushed straight into the dense tide of beasts. As the battle axe was swung, the area within a radius of nearly 1,000 meters centered on himself was instantly covered by surging thunder. The violent force instantly turned the enemies into charred corpses. Luo Zhongli's face became even paler. The previous attack had consumed too much of his energy. The mind was in a trance unconsciously. The scene before him gradually became illusory, but an icy chill suddenly appeared behind him. Luo Zhongli subconsciously dodged and saw a humanoid alien monster rushing towards him, with two outstretched hands containing huge claws shining with cold light. The current distance was too far for him to swing his axe to block. Luo Zhongli could only adjust his position to the maximum extent, but even so, the sharp claws would still cause some damage to him. Clang! Just as Luo Zhongli gritted his teeth and prepared to take this injury, a figure suddenly stood in front of him. Captain, you must not make any mistakes. The brothers are watching you. A thin young man in military uniform, holding 2 daggers, blocked the monster's claws firmly. Yunhan, you kid. Luo Zhenqi chuckled. The young man who suddenly appeared was named Yunhan, and he had been assigned to his work from other areas not long ago. He has a B-level frost ability and has always performed very well. He is a newcomer that he is very optimistic about. Boy, you want to learn from me and go deep into the enemy camp? Don't you even consider your own abilities? With Yunhan's blocking, Luo Zhenqi swung his axe and chopped off the monster's head. So, I'm waiting for the captain to take me back. The young man named Yunhan smiled. Okay, follow me and fight your way back. Luo Zhenqi shook his head to keep himself awake, then swung his battle axe to cut his way through the crowd. Yunhan followed him closely, guarding against hidden dangers in the dark. In an instant, lightning and ice crisscrossed, and the superconducting reaction caused by the 2 elements made their attacks more effective. The 2 of them were like no one in the world, and wherever they went, there was devastating area damage. Captain, these monsters seem to be starting to break off. Using the icy frost to freeze the nearby enemies, Yunhan shouted in surprise as he looked at the gap in the beast tide in the distance. Very good. Tell the brothers to hold on a little longer, these guys can't hold on for much longer. This sudden discovery also gave Luo Zhenqi a little more hope, and he couldn't help but wave his hands more vigorously. Yunhan, your strength has improved recently. Well, I just reached the middle stage of the 3rd stage some time ago. By the way, you're already an adult, and you still don't have a girlfriend. Don't think about it for now. That won't work. I'll introduce you to some good ones when we get back. Captain. I think we should just forget it. The 2 chatted intermittently during the fighting all the way, because they were too tired. Fatigue began to surge into everyone's heart. If they didn't say something, they would easily be swallowed by fatigue. Gradually, Luo Zhenqi and his men were only 500 meters away from the defense line. Hold on, kid. We'll be back soon. Luo Zhenqi swung his axe and chopped the enemy in front of him, saying excitedly. But this time, there was no response from behind for a long time. An ominous feeling instantly enveloped his heart. Yunhan. Turning around again, there was no familiar figure behind him. There were only a bunch of monsters rushing towards him and 2 broken daggers on the ground. A hole. Luo Zhenqi's eyes suddenly turned red, and his heart felt heavy and painful. Even more violent thunder began to appear around him. At this moment, hatred soared to the sky, and Luo Zhenqi actually exploded all the remaining energy in his body. Boom! It was like an endless stream of violent lightning snakes spreading wildly in all directions, and anyone affected would be instantly blasted into ashes and dissipated. But strength has its limits. When the strength in the body is exhausted in an instant, more enemies begin to pounce from all around. No matter how unwilling he was, Luo Zhenqi had no choice but to pick up the 2 daggers on the ground and return to the defense line to rest under the cover of the defense firepower. Fight to the bitter end. Don't give them any time to rest, everyone, charge forward. On top of a mountain, a group of believers dressed in black robes were standing there. The leader among them was wearing a purple robe and was speaking in a hoarse voice. As he finished speaking, the surrounding beasts and alien races all began to riot more frantically, rushing madly towards the defense line. Damn it! We have to hold on even if we die. Inside the defense line, most people were already exhausted and close to desperate situations. Facing the enemy's most frenzied attack, everyone held their weapons tightly with a resolute look on their faces, ready to fight for their lives. Boom! Just when everyone was ready to face death, a strange sound suddenly came from the air. A dark crack suddenly appeared, and 2 figures appeared in front of everyone. Seeing that he had left the dark space, Chu Chen kicked the seriously injured woman to the ground. Ah! The woman was now covered in blood, falling to the ground without any resistance, and could only scream miserably. Noisy! The woman's voice was so sharp that it made Chu Chen's ears uncomfortable. He then swung his white tasseled spear, drawing a streak of light, and was about to kill the woman directly. Buzz! But at the same time, a blood-red spear came from an unknown direction, and the tip of the spear hit Chu Chen's spear directly, dispelling his attack. The member of the 10,000 Races sect who was wearing a purple robe came behind the woman in a few flashes and held her steadily in his arms. Who? Chu Chen said subconsciously. One of the 7 lower-ranking disciples of the 10,000 Races fallen god cult. Zi Tuesday. Chapter 38. The guy who called himself Zi2 had a hoarse but calm voice, and it could be vaguely determined that he was a male. It seems that you have rejected the saint's kindness. Since you are unwilling to join the church, then, die. The blood-red spear burst out from Zi2's hand again, and the thick flame burned the air and attached to his spear. It is worth noting that the flame in this gun is a strange purple color. The enormous force seemed to cause the surrounding air to begin to distort. Everyone change your target. No matter the cost, that heaven-level person must be brought down. At the same time, new orders came from the believers in the rear. In an instant, the monsters and alien races that had been launching a fierce attack on the city's defense line all turned their spearheads around. They rushed in from all directions, colorful energy bursting out from their bodies, and all bombarded towards Chu Chen. Oh no! Luo Zhenqi shouted loudly inside the defense line. Chu Chen's appearance just now had made the worry in his heart fall to the ground, but now Chu Chen's appearance attracted the enemy's crazy siege again. It goes without saying that the main purpose of this attack was not them, but Chu Chen. From the beginning to the end, the Church of all races has set its sights on Chu Chen. If they cannot recruit him, they will eliminate him. However, most people's energy is almost exhausted now. No matter how angry Luo Zhenqi is, the energy in his body is not enough to support him to take action. However, although the awakening energy has been used up, the scientific research weapons can still play a role. Bombs of fire are ejected from these weapons, trying to block as many attacks as possible for Chu Chen. And higher up in the sky, Mo Sui Han, who realized that Chu Chen had become the target of public criticism, frowned. In a moment of distraction, he was accidentally hit by the figure formed by the black flames. Why, do you want to save that boy? A teasing sound came from the figure's mouth. There's nothing you can do. Even more violent black flames emanated from the figure's body, and in a whistling motion, they transformed into a fire tornado hundreds of meters high that tightly confined Mo Sui Han to an area. Don't be in such a hurry to leave, let's have some fun, ha ha ha. The tone of the figure became more and more rampant. Its purpose was to entangle Mo Sui Han, its protector. In its opinion, without Mo Sui Han's help, Chu Chen's death would only be a matter of time. Forced to withdraw by the attack of the figure, Mo Sui Han's face became more and more anxious, but he was helpless. No, even if it means sacrificing my life, I must save him. As if he had made up his mind, Mo Sui Han gritted his teeth and wanted to rely on burning his life to gain stronger power to break the formation. But at this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from outside the dark clouds above everyone's heads. You, what are you pretending to be with me? Zi2's tone made Chu Chen very dissatisfied, and the golden light in his eyes became brighter. Heaven moves Vientian. These 4 words came out of his mouth calmly. Without any emotion, he instantly revealed a boundless murderous aura. The rock elements around his body surged violently in an instant, and golden lines began to appear on his exposed arm. The sudden power made Zi2 stunned, and even the blood-red spear in his hand began to tremble as if in fear. Boom! In an instant, a huge black hole spread out above everyone's head, and a golden light broke through the sky like a sharp sword, and the originally thick and accumulated black clouds were instantly cut apart. The surrounding black clouds suddenly took on a vortex shape, gathering in all directions with the golden light as the center. They are giving way. Again, that move again. Luo Zhenqi's eyes were wide open, and he just stared up at the sky in amazement. No. Not like last time. That horrible thing is bigger than the last time. Someone nearby screamed. Many of them witnessed the last time Chu Chen performed the heaven moving all things. But it was different from this time, because this time, the 4 stars that slowly emerged from the golden vortex were a whole circle larger than the last time, both in size and in other aspects. The stars in the sky, formed by the interweaving of meteorites, are shining with boundless light. How brilliant and beautiful they are! The fascinating stars in the sky seemed like a piece of natural and exquisite work of art, but now pressing down on everyone's head, they were announcing the coming of destruction. Isn't this the shooting star from that night? Is this something Chu Chen can do? It's simply divine punishment. Within the city, the strange phenomenon of the falling stars was witnessed by everyone in Yunhai City. The golden light painted the thick clouds, which was truly a miracle. But what shocked most people was that this vision was actually created by Chu Chen. What does this mean? An awakener who has just awakened for a few days can actually exert a power like a natural disaster. Chu Chen stood high in the sky. In order to prevent the star from affecting the city, he chose to land on a mountain farthest from the city. And just below him, Zi2 was shocked. From his perspective, he was looking up at Chu Chen and the stars behind him. The golden light shone on Chu Chen's body, and Zi2 saw majesty in his golden eyes. He was a king who brought down judgment and looked down upon everything in the world. In front of this king, he no longer had the strength to resist. Run! Run! The blood-red spear fell from Zi2's hand. He didn't even have time to take care of his weapon. He just ran away with the woman in his arms. Want to run? However, Chu Chen would not let him have his wish. Long spears condensed from rocks suddenly took shape and turned into a rain of spears that were swung downwards. How could a heaven-level person who has just awakened possess such power? The originally complacent black flame figure also shouted in disbelief, and at this moment it was no longer as calm as before. The raging flames rushed towards the Tianxing under its command. If it did not choose to take action, this Tianxing would not only annihilate their entire army, but would also almost certainly do so. Huff! Suddenly, whirlwinds appeared, and the strong winds swept the flames, instantly shifting their direction to another place. You were the one who said it just now. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Ha, have some fun. A slight smile appeared on Mo Suihan's lips. Now it was her turn to mock. But the figure's chest was filled with rage, and these were clearly its words. But it had no way out. It could entangle Mo Suihan, and Mo Suihan could also entangle it. There was no point in staying here any longer. Seeing that he was helpless, the figure turned into a beam of fire and fled towards the distant sky. Chapter 39. Rock spears fell from the sky like rain, as if announcing the arrival of judgment. The speed at which the stars fell was not fast, at least at this moment, it seemed slow in everyone's eyes. The figure formed by the black flames fled away, and Mo Suihan's body, which had been holding on tightly, couldn't help but relax. A few traces of blood dripped from the corners of her mouth. She had already suffered a lot of injuries in the previous battle. Using his remaining strength, Mo Suihan flew back into the defense line again. Under Tianxing's pressure, the originally violent and huge beast-tide and alien races fled in all directions. They can breathe a sigh of relief. It can only be said that Chu Chen is the biggest variable in this battle. The enemy had already estimated his strength to be extremely high, but they did not expect that they had underestimated him after all. This gigantic star is actually the power of natural disasters. Without absolutely high-level existences, no matter how many there are, they will all fall under it in vain. As the distance between the star and the ground continues to shorten, the enormous pressure becomes stronger and stronger. A huge gale swept across the sky, causing the monsters and aliens below who were trying to escape to tremble all over. The stars fell along the way, and the intense heat generated by friction was even hotter and brighter. They accumulated into a ball, waiting for the final detonation. Boom! Finally, Tianxing collided heavily with the mountain where it landed. The mountain, which was originally hundreds of meters high, collapsed directly, turned into powder and was melted by the high temperature, and no longer existed. The power that had been accumulated for a long time exploded in an instant, sending out a terrifying impact force in all directions. At this moment, it was like the end of the world. The ground beneath everyone's feet suddenly began to shake violently, causing the crowd to shake. Even though the place where the star landed was extremely far away from the city, the impact of the explosion still caused the protective barrier on the city wall to tremble and almost lose its color. At this time, humans and aliens had completely different feelings. Although the explosion caused by the falling star could have a certain impact on them, it was not serious due to the long distance. Among the crowd, more people were amazed at the shock of a desolate planet crashing into the Earth. But the monsters and alien races within the range of Tianxing did not feel the slightest shock at all. Some of them were left with only fear and oppression deep in their bones. Some enemies with lower strength cannot even wait for the stars to fall, and their bodies will explode directly under the huge pressure. No matter how fast they flee, they cannot escape the range of damage. Even if one is lucky enough not to be hit by the explosion, the subsequent huge impact force is still enough to be fatal instantly. It was unknown how long the violent roar and the smoke that covered the sky lasted, until they slowly dissipated with the passage of time. People stopped to look into the distance and saw that the dense forest and continuous mountains on the horizon, a large part of which no longer existed. The originally huge and overwhelming beast tide now only had a few survivors left, scattered around the edge of the wilderness, but they were also seriously injured. At the center of the crash, where a mountain hundreds of meters high once stood, now only a shockingly huge pit remains, and the remaining fire is still spreading in all directions. This is what Chu Chen can do, the power of instant destruction, so terrifying. Luo Zhenqi and Mo Suihan were both stunned. They had always placed their hopes on Chu Chen, believing that he would be the one who could lead humanity to turn the situation around in the future. But no one expected that his progress would be so fast. In just a few days, he would be able to make such a big impact on the battlefield. Chu Chen was suspended in the air. He looked around and shook his head regretfully, pity. The disciple of the Church of all races who called himself Zi2 and the woman known as the Saint eventually fled from here. No matter how many enemies died at his hands, they were ultimately just small fries and shrimps, without any value. He looked down from the air, overlooking the destructive scene in the distance, which made Chu Chen a little dazed. These are actually what he can do. At this moment, he seemed to have become the most dazzling existence between heaven and earth. This scene was naturally recorded by the people in the city, including the scene where Chu Chen summoned Tianxing before, all of which was recorded. Relying on the transmission speed of the internet, these videos can be instantly transmitted to all parts of the country and even to countries around the world in a very short time. Chu Chen naturally didn't know that the entire world's network was shaking for him today. I know this person. Didn't he make the headlines a few days ago because he awakened his heavenly talent? That's not the point. The point is that in just a few days, this Chu Chen was able to display a terrifying power comparable to a natural disaster. So handsome. He's simply a god. Is that a meteorite? It doesn't look like one at all. It looks like a work of art carefully carved by someone. I'm not surprised that a heaven-level person can exert such destructive power. What surprises me is that this young man seems to have just awakened this year. The internet around the world was in an uproar, with people in all kinds of languages expressing their unparalleled amazement. Different from ordinary destruction, the greatest feeling Chu Chen gives to the world is elegance and magnificence. Whether it was the way he fought with the white tasseled spear in his hand, or the bright and beautiful jade shield surrounding him, or the star that announced his death. All of them are like carefully crafted works of art, eye-catching and fascinating. But it is precisely such a beautiful thing that can burst out the most destructive power. The huge contrast makes Chu Chen even more unique. Of course, in addition to Chu Chen, the video uploaded to the internet also recorded the scenes of other soldiers such as Luo Zhenqi fighting to the death and killing the enemy, which were also recorded by people in the city. Although these scenes are not as shocking as Chu Chen's, they show the integrity of every hero on the battlefield. After all, geniuses like Chu Chen who are extremely powerful are still a minority. Ordinary awakeners are the norm for most people. They do not have outstanding talents and amazing strength, but when facing foreign invasions, they will still resolutely rush to the front line and fight to the death. Even though he knew he would die on the spot, he never took a step back. The glory of victory belongs not only to those who stand out, but also to everyone who sacrifices his life for justice, regardless of his talent and strength, because they are all heroes on the battlefield. However, behind the joy of victory, what worried everyone more was why such a large-scale attack suddenly occurred in the rear. The Church of all races, as a traitor organization rooted within humanity, is a bomb that can explode at any time. Now that they dare to act so openly and ostentatiously, I'm afraid they are brewing some new conspiracy behind the scenes. Chapter 40. The golden divine light cleared away the thick black clouds. A deep black hole looms above the sky, overlooking the earth. In the very center, surrounded by clouds, a golden square object was shining brightly, as if it came from the sky. The intense friction with the air generated extremely high temperature, which turned into wisps of blood-red steam that lingered in all directions. In mid-air, countless rocks condensed into heavy rock spears, which were thrown from above as dense as raindrops. Each rock spear would penetrate deeply into the body of the monster, tearing its flesh and bones, and dyeing the earth red with blood. One after another, thick stone pillars rose from the ground. They shone with golden light and created ripples in all directions. Any enemy affected by the ripples would be hurt and stumble. Finally, a huge object came from the sky and crashed down. The hundreds of meters high mountain collapsed without any resistance. The strong explosion mixed with huge smoke and ash rushed in all directions. The powerful impact shattered the stone pillars standing on the ground, and also caused blood and flesh to splatter on all nearby enemies. The extremely high temperature melted their bodies. No matter how numerous the monsters were, they could not escape this judgment that was like that of God. Until the explosion gradually dissipated, the figure standing in the air was still floating there quietly, without being affected in any way. The camera only captured the man's back, standing between heaven and earth with a spear in his hand. After a slight glance, you can see the dazzling golden pupils in his eyes. The black clouds above gradually dissipated, and only the remaining fire was still burning and spreading on the earth. Then it fell into stillness. The video playback has ended. This is a huge virtual projection, but with the help of the most advanced technological performance of mankind, the original video image has been restored to ultra-high definition. Now the scene shown in front of everyone has reached 8K resolution. The audience present seemed to have watched a grand movie, and they all breathed a sigh of relief after the film ended. This is a pavilion located on an island in the sky within the Kyushu Imperial Capital Academy. Legend has it that there is an island floating in the sky all year round within the school district of the Imperial Capital Academy. It is a place where only the highest level decision makers and god-level powerful people in Kyushu are qualified to visit. There are now many people gathered in the magnificent pavilion. They sat around a circular conference table, around which sat almost all of Kyushu's current supreme beings. We've finished watching the video, do you have anything to say? An old man in a black Zhongshan suit sitting on the main seat spoke first. The old man's hair was already grey, but it was combed meticulously. He looked very old, but the Zhongshan suit he wore could not cover the bulging muscles underneath. He is the president of the Imperial Capital Academy and the leader of the 20 god-level powerful men in Zhuzhu, Li Kunlun. Did this child really just awaken this year? Someone raised a question. Yes, it was during this year's awakening ceremony. It caused quite a stir at the time, and the strength he displayed during the subsequent trials was far beyond our expectations. The evaluation he received at that time was unprecedented, unique. A middle-aged man wearing glasses answered. His name was Xiang Qinghai, and he was the leader in charge of conducting trials and evaluations for awakeners of special sequences. Holy shit! Wasn't that just a few days ago? Hearing the firm answer, the person who asked the question earlier shouted in disbelief. Yes, he was able to display a calamity-level force in just a few days. This is what caused everyone to be incredulous. This has never happened before since I woke up. It seemed like more than 2 months had passed since the last heaven-level awakener was able to display the power of the calamity level at the fastest speed. At that time, his realm had reached the middle stage of the 4th stage. What is this? This Chu Chen broke this record. This is a good thing. After all, our research on awakening is still at the most basic stage. It is normal for things to happen that are beyond our understanding. A heated discussion suddenly broke out in the pavilion. The focus of the discussion was that most people couldn't believe how Chu Chen, who had only awakened for a few days, could possess such tremendous power. Okay everyone, no matter what, we should be thankful. Li Kunlun spoke up to suppress the noise. This child named Chu Chen may very well be the one who can break the impasse in the future. When the word breakthrough was mentioned, everyone was shocked instantly. The current human situation is only a temporary and illusory stability. In the rear, there are followers of all races waiting for an opportunity to make trouble, and there is constant war on the void battlefield at the front. The battle between the human coalition and the all races coalition is still going on, and it is unknown how long it will last. At least for now, humans have been trapped in the void by aliens, like a trapped beast fighting hard. It can hold up for a short period of time, but as time goes by, it will become more and more dangerous. The so-called breakthrough means breaking this stalemate and unfavorable situation, so that mankind can break through the encirclement of all races and seize the initiative in the war. Moreover, you have also seen Chu Chen's character. He rejected the invitation of the 10,000 races followers and helped us suppress the attack. Everyone present knew very well why such a large-scale attack had erupted in the rear of Yunhai City. The enemies were targeting Chu Chen. They were planning to win over Chu Chen from the beginning. If they fail, they will take the opportunity to kill Chu Chen. A woman pondered. This is an old trick of the 10,000 races sect, but this time they failed too thoroughly because they greatly underestimated Chu Chen's current strength. In fact, we never thought he would have such a powerful killer weapon. In short, the exposure of Chu Chen's affair is a good thing. It can be a great deterrent to those countries with ulterior motives and those foreign races who are eyeing him covetously. But the biggest problem is that since Chu Chen has exposed such power, there is deterrence, but there are more dangers. Our biggest focus should be on how to protect him. In one sentence, the theme of this meeting is highlighted. We must give him more time to grow, give him better resources, and give him stronger protection. I think that just Mo Suihan alone is not enough. We must send more people to protect him secretly. That's right. This matter has already attracted unprecedented attention. It's impossible to keep it hidden and let Chu Chen develop secretly. In this case, we have to build momentum for him. Li Kunlun smiled lightly. It seemed that everyone at this meeting had a common understanding. Chapter 41. Chu Chen family. At this time, 2 days had passed since the attack by the Church of All Races. During these 2 days, Chu Chen had stayed at home without going out. It's just because the downstairs of his house has already been surrounded by a bustling crowd. Chu Chen. Chu Chen idol. Please come out and show your face. Hero, please. Give me an autograph. Boss, you are so handsome. I really admire you. Please come out and see me. Family, this is the home of our great hero Chu Chen. Double-click and follow me, I will continue to broadcast live here. Noisy noises rose and fell among the crowd. That's right, ever since he displayed his terrifying strength in front of everyone, Chu Chen has long been regarded as the hottest star by the people of Yunhai City. Many people simply couldn't suppress their excitement and rushed directly to the downstairs of his house, creating the current scene, surrounding him completely. If Luo Zhenqi had not sent a small team of people to the downstairs of his house to keep watch, these overly fanatical people would have rushed into his house. Chu Chen, please be patient. The battlefield here has been cleaned up almost completely. Once there are spare personnel, I will send them over immediately to evacuate these people. Luo Zhenqi's helpless voice came from the phone. The enemy's attack is over, and the captain of the garrison army has a very troublesome time. Not only do they have to investigate the damage, but they also have to clean up the subsequent battlefield, pay pensions, and a host of other things waiting for them to do. The manpower that can be sent to deal with his problem is now very limited, but fortunately, after 2 days, the subsequent troubles are about to be settled. Luo Zhenqi also immediately assured him that he would send more people to evacuate these overly fanatical fans. Okay, Captain Luo, cleaning up the battlefield is more important. I'm not in a hurry here. After hanging up the phone with a helpless look on his face, Chu Chen quietly stuck half of his head out and glanced under the window. What caught his eye was still a dense crowd of people, some of whom even set up tents and stalls. Although most of the people were normal and kept calling for people not to disturb their lives privately, they still couldn't resist a small number of crazy guys who rushed to his building and made a lot of noise without caring about anything. It is true that people are afraid of becoming famous just like pigs are afraid of getting fat. Chu Chen did not expect that he would get into such a big trouble now. After he closed the curtains, he was too lazy to pay attention to the noise outside, and then he muttered to himself to the air system, how long will it take before the new ability is unlocked? Ding! Host, please be patient. There is still 1 minute before the new ability is unlocked. After getting the system's reply, Chu Chen breathed a sigh of relief. Benefiting from the large number of beast riots and alien invasions, although most of the enemies are not of high level and give little experience, they are outnumbered. So after that day's battle, the experience he gained was enough to raise Chu Chen's current level directly to level 20. The system had previously foretold him about the new abilities of the Rooted Dragon King. Now that he had leveled up so many times, he naturally met the triggering conditions for unlocking the new abilities. However, the system told him that unlocking the new ability actually required a countdown, so he stayed at home for the past 2 days to avoid the enthusiasm of some people and to wait for the countdown to end. Ding! 10 seconds left. 9. 8. 2. 1. As the system counted down, when 1 came out, Chu Chen's eyes suddenly flickered, and the whole person seemed to be suddenly transferred to another space. When he came to his senses again, he was no longer at home, but on a vast and empty plain, with occasional rugged mountains around him. The sun overhead was scorching brightly, and the scorching air was distorted by the waves of heat. What's going on? Chu Chen was a little confused. Didn't they agree to unlock new abilities? How did I suddenly teleport myself to a strange place? Ding! The host needs to fight for the unlocking of new abilities. Whether the host can pass the trial determines whether the host can successfully unlock it. Ding! Successfully marked a location. Along with 2 consecutive voices from the system, a golden beam of light suddenly appeared at the end of the horizon in front of Chu Chen. But because the distance was too far, the light beam appeared very blurry. However, according to the system, if he wants to unlock new abilities, he still needs to pass trials, and the direction of the golden light column should be the direction that guides him forward. That's good, at least I don't have to endure that noise. The wilderness where Chu Chen was now was quiet and desolate, which made his ears feel quiet. Just as Chu Chen was about to move towards the direction of the light column, there was a sudden buzzing sound from the ground in front of him. Bang! 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 The next moment, huge black shadows suddenly broke out from the ground and leaped into the air. In Chu Chen's eyes, he could only vaguely see that these black shadows were spherical in shape, but sharp all over. Before he could take a closer look, these dark shadows began to rush towards him violently. Faced with the sudden attack, Chu Chen did not panic at all. He did not need to dodge and just let the huge balls fall towards his head. As solid as a rock. Chu Chen gently waved his hands to both sides, and the jade shield instantly condensed and formed around him. Bang! Bang bang! In an instant, dense black shadows fell heavily on the shield, but their attacks not only failed to cause effective damage to the shield, but they themselves were knocked out in all directions due to the powerful recoil force. These black shadows were bounced to the ground, and their huge bodies instantly created a large hole in the ground. Roar! Roar! Low growls came from the dark shadows around him, and Chu Chen could then clearly see the appearance of these monsters. It is about 2 meters tall, and looks like a standing lizard. Its skin is covered with layers of armor that is as solid as rock. The golden horn on top of their heads is like amber, and golden lines like lava flow on their body surface, which looks very eye-catching. Is this a rock dragon lizard? The attribute panel of the rock dragon lizard was immediately displayed in front of Chu Chen. Rock dragon lizard, a strong dragon lizard creature with the special ability to control multiple elements. It is superior to the young rock dragon lizard and inferior to the ancient rock dragon lizard. Chapter 42. There were now 4 rock dragon lizards that suddenly attacked Chu Chen, surrounding him in the middle from 4 directions. Buzz! Suddenly, the patterns on the body of a rock dragon lizard changed. With a strange sound, it changed from the original lava gold to a purple color like lightning. With flashes of purple lightning, the rock dragon lizard opened its mouth wide. Roar! In an instant, 3 thunderballs formed by compressed lightning flew towards Chu Chen at a high speed. This move uses the energy of the lightning element to gather and compress it into a sphere, which will explode completely after finally colliding with the enemy, causing huge damage. At the same time, the other 3 rock dragon lizards also launched attacks. The colors of the patterns on their bodies began to change. One rock dragon lizard jumped up again, and a ball of flames began to appear on its body surface, and it fell towards Chu Chen again. The other 2 released several frost crystals in a circle formed by water flow respectively. The 2 elemental attacks entangled with each other and moved forward rapidly. In an instant, 4 powerful attacks were triggered at the same time, surrounding Chu Chen in the blink of an eye. Almost as the attack was about to hit the shield, Chu Chen moved again, and a huge ridge of rock rose from the ground. The moment the ridge was formed, a circle of ripple shock waves spread rapidly in all directions. The 3 elemental attacks collided with the ripples first, but they had no power to resist and instantly rushed in the opposite direction. For a moment, the 3 rock dragon lizards were dumbfounded. Seeing their attacks flying towards them, they wanted to dodge but it was too late to react. Boom! In an instant, the 3 rock dragon lizards were flung away by their own attack, and then the impact force of the rock ridge came. Before the 3 rock dragon lizards could recover from the damage of their own attack, they were hit hard by the ripples again in the next second. They fell heavily to the surroundings and fainted. The originally hard armor on his body was in a state of shattering, revealing a bloody mess of flesh. The rock dragon lizard above his head was about to fall on Chu Chen's head with a fierce flame. Although it luckily avoided the impact of the rock ridge, the next moment, boom! A giant rock hand made of lava protruded from the ground, in a clenched fist shape, and directly bombarded the rock dragon lizard from below with powerful force. The rock dragon lizard, which was originally so powerful and majestic, caused a violent explosion in an instant after colliding with the giant lava fist. The powerful destructive force spread rapidly in all directions, but Chu Chen, who was at the center of the explosion, remained motionless because of the protection of the jade shield. He clearly saw the flames wrapped around the rock dragon lizard go out quickly, and then the entire huge body was blown away by the giant fist. This heavy blow killed the rock dragon lizard instantly in mid-air, and its hard armor was completely shattered. When it fell heavily to the ground, it was already a pool of blood and flesh. It may sound like a long process, but in fact it happened in just a few seconds. Within a few seconds, the 4 rock dragon lizards had completely lost all signs of life. Is the new ability really related to the Ruota Dragon King? Looking at the corpses of the rock dragon lizards around him, Chu Chen suddenly fell into deep thought. The Dragon King Ruota is a creature of elements and has the same lifespan as the mountains and seas, but he seems to have a close relationship with the Dragon Lizard clan. He will know the details when he reaches the location of the golden beam of light. Without much hesitation, Chu Chen rushed towards the coordinates at full speed. Along the way, all kinds of monsters attacked. And it's no longer limited to rock dragon lizards, rock slime, rock floating spirit, baby rock dragon lizard, rock dragon lizard. Monsters of different types have one thing in common, they are all rock elemental creatures. However, the overall strength was not very high, which was not a big obstacle for Chu Chen at all, and he was becoming more and more comfortable in killing along the way. In fact, he didn't need to attack at all. He just needed to keep the Yuzhang shield in place, and those creatures would not be able to break his defense at all. Until Chu Chen gradually passed through the endless wasteland and came to a place where mountains were piled up. In front of him were cliffs, but they seemed to have suffered some kind of destructive attack and were now in ruins. There were ruins everywhere, and the rocks were covered with charred marks. And within this mountain range, the most conspicuous thing is an extremely huge pit with a diameter of about several hundred meters. Chu Chen can feel a terrifying aura emanating from it. However, the direction of the pit is still a long distance away from the golden light column, and it is obvious that it is not the place where the final trial takes place. Chu Chen silently grasped the white tassel spear in his hand. Although that place was not the coordinate location, the powerful aura it exuded attracted him to go and find out. When he came to the side of the pit, roar! Suddenly, a violent roar came from below. A powerful wave of force suddenly erupted from the pit, and hideous cracks suddenly appeared on the surrounding rocks and the ground. That's an ancient rock dragon lizard. With the help of his sense of the rocks, Chu Chen discovered that there was a vast cave below the pit. Inside the cave was a creature that looked similar to a rock dragon lizard, but was several times larger than the rock dragon lizard. The aura emanating from its body is far beyond what a rock dragon lizard can compare to. On top of its extremely huge body, there are thick muscles covered under hard armor, and on its back is a densely packed carapace that is as sharp and rugged as rocks. At this moment, it is emitting a lava-like glow, as if a volcano is about to erupt. On its chest there are lines of flowing lava, which gradually converge into a pattern, looking very ancient and weathered. Buzz! Suddenly, there was a strange sound from the body of the ancient rock dragon lizard, and the pattern on its chest suddenly changed from lava to blue-white like ice crystals. A huge ice crystal suddenly condensed out of thin air and whistled towards Chu Chen above. Bang! Chu Chen instantly swung the white tassel spear in his hand. The rock element attached to the spear body and directly chopped the huge ice edge into countless flying fragments. Finally, here comes a guy who can fight. It was really boring to kill monsters along the way. Looking at the ancient rock dragon lizard below, Chu Chen gradually felt a little fighting spirit in his heart. His eyes slowly turned into amber and then emitted a dazzling golden light. At the same time, the huge ancient rock dragon lizard below suddenly shook its entire body and took a few steps backwards. Is in fear. Chapter 43. Between the dim sky and earth, the brilliant sunset dyes the horizon red. The demon's corpses piled up on the plain, and his blood stained the earth. In a stretch of mountains, a giant dragon was hovering among the mountains. Under it was a demon as huge as a mountain, but now it had lost all trace of life. This world seemed to have fallen into peace for a short time. Brilliant golden light like starlight burst out from the dragon's body, and its size began to shrink instantly. In the end, it turned into a tiny human figure standing on the cliff. The reduction in size did not affect the terrifying aura emanating from the figure. He looked particularly lonely as he gazed at the sunset in the distance. Although there were piles of enemy corpses around him, the figure's white robe was not stained with a single trace of blood. He just stood quietly on the top of the mountain, watching the sunset and the night fall. Only the dazzling golden pupils in his eyes sparkled brightly. It seems to illuminate this suffering world. For some reason, this scene appeared in the mind of the ancient rock dragon lizard. The Chu Chen above my head began to slowly overlap with the figure in my mind. The same bright golden eyes made it feel fear in its heart. Chu Chen descended from above with the white tassel spear in his hand, and the spear intent containing tremendous power instantly spread from his body. Until Chu Chen stepped on the ground and stood in front of the ancient rock dragon lizard, what came into his sight was the devastation, ruin and desolation in the cave. Roar! The ancient rock dragon lizard seemed to have recovered. It suppressed the anger in its heart and began to roar at Chu Chen angrily. The pattern on the chest changed from ice crystals to purple lightning again. The next moment, a huge cross lightning mark suddenly appeared under Chu Chen's feet. The violent thunder element suddenly broke out of the ground and rushed towards Chu Chen from under his feet. The ferocious lightning struck Yu Zhang's shield, causing ripples on the surface of the shield. Seeing the opponent launching an attack, Chu Chen instantly turned into a golden afterimage and rushed out. The spear in his hand instantly drew countless spear shadows in the air, forming a dense attack area and bombarded the ancient rock dragon lizard. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, countless gun shadows collided with the hard armor of the ancient rock dragon lizard, leaving behind a series of charred marks. The ancient rock dragon lizard's anger obviously became stronger as it was attacked. Its two front legs suddenly stomped towards the ground. The next moment, the ground cracked into a dense mass of cracks, and rock dragon lizards and baby rock dragon lizards jumped out from these cracks and swarmed towards Chu Chen. There were so many of them at once that they surrounded him tightly. Chu Chen had no time to take care of these monsters. Driven by the elements in his body, one after another burly 1,000 rock army soldiers broke out of the ground beside him. Now that he has reached level 20, the number of 1,000 rock soldiers he can summon has increased from 4 to 6. The 6 Kunyan soldiers used their tall bodies to form an indestructible wall, and the Kunyan spears in their hands whistled towards the enemies around them. Chu Chen once again raised his gun and jumped into the air. Around him, rock spears were instantly formed and fell towards the ancient rock dragon lizard below like raindrops. The ancient rock dragon lizard's chest suddenly changed again, transforming into a blue water element, and several thick streams of water burst out around its body. The water flow condensed into a water wall blocking his way and collided directly with the rock spear. Boom! Accompanied by earth-shattering loud noises, the entire huge cave began to tremble violently. Rocks began to fall off all around, and dust flew everywhere. The huge cave was immediately filled with attacks from Chu Chen and the ancient rock dragon lizards. Finally, it exploded. With the jade shield, Chu Chen could ignore the impact of the impact, but the ancient rock dragon lizard staggered back several steps under the violent impact. The water wall could not completely block the attack of the rock spears. Several rock spears still fell heavily on its body, destroying the armor on its surface piece by piece, revealing the hideous flesh and blood inside. The intense pain caused the ancient rock dragon lizard to go berserk. The pattern on its chest once again transformed into the fire element of lava, and the densely packed spike-like protrusions on its back were also covered by lava. Bang, bang, bang. The next moment, as if throwing a missile, dense lava spines spurted out from the back of the ancient rock dragon lizard. Fierce flames splashed rapidly in the air, and instantly caused a large explosion when they fell to the ground, creating one dense pit after another. Chu Chen flew into the air to avoid being affected by the ground, but the ancient rock dragon lizard then poured dense lava upwards. Seeing that the opponent's attack was endless, Chu Chen frowned slightly. The next moment, a huge rock ridge suddenly stood up and broke out of the ground under the belly of the ancient rock dragon lizard. This attack obviously caught the ancient rock dragon lizard off guard. The powerful impact caused by the appearance of the rock ridge made it unstable, and the entire dragon lizard fell backwards. The rain of lava backstabs finally stopped, and Chu Chen poured multiple times of the elemental power in his body into the white tassel spear. This time, he wanted to try a new tactic. The golden rock element completely enveloped the entire spear body, and Chu Chen immediately threw the white tassel spear out, swish. The next moment after the spear left his hand, the size of the white tassel spear began to rapidly increase in mid-air, becoming more than 10 times its previous size. The huge white tasseled spear dropped from the sky with a terrifying aura. Golden rays of light kept surging between the spear bodies. The tremendous pressure had already made it become a miniature version of the moving heaven and earth. This is what Chu Chen discovered recently. When more rock elements are injected into weapons, the size and power of the weapons will begin to increase rapidly under the influence of the elements. Of course, to achieve such a tenfold increase, the amount of elemental power consumed in the body is also very large, but for Chu Chen it is nothing. Boom! The impact caused by the enlargement of the white tasseled spear made the cave shaky and seemed to be about to collapse. The ancient rock dragon lizard below obviously also sensed the terrifying power above its head that seemed to be able to penetrate everything, and its mountain-like body curled up in an instant. Chapter 44. In an instant, the four elemental forces of thunder, fire, ice, and water were all stimulated by the ancient rock dragon lizard at the same time. Four violent elemental forces began to surround its curled-up surface, transforming it into a huge rocky meatball. The four colors of light echoed with each other, and in an instant they followed its body and crashed into the air. The figure of the ancient rock dragon lizard turned into a colorful phantom with flashing colors and rushed straight towards the white tassel spear. The terrifying power spread out, and the purple lightning made the surrounding air vibrate and buzz. The thick lava burned the surrounding area with high temperature, while ice and water were intertwined, condensing into a cold chill within this burning atmosphere. Dang! Boom! The earth-shaking sounds of collision intertwined in an instant, and the two continued to stalemate in mid-air. The residual power that spread out directly caused the cave to collapse completely. Rocks fell, dust flew, and the earth shook. Until the energy exploded completely, the surrounding terrain was completely engulfed, leaving only a shocking pit emitting scorching residual heat. The huge body of the ancient rock dragon lizard fell heavily to the ground, and the white tassel spear instantly returned to its original size and flashed back into Chu Chen's hand. However, no matter how loud the explosion was, Chu Chen still stood quietly in the air, as still and steady as a rock. Kerala. Hideous cracks began to appear on the ground of the pit, and soon they covered the entire area like a spider web, completely cracking. The elemental power of the fallen ancient rock dragon lizard had been completely exhausted, and its armor was tattered, revealing its hideous flesh and bones. It lay on the ground weakly, gasping for breath. The lava-colored pupils stared closely at Chu Chen in the air. The eyes kept trembling, and eventually dimmed. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the ancient rock dragon lizard. Obtained the exclusive holy relic, 4-star ancient rock. Chu Chen didn't expect that after killing this ancient rock dragon lizard, he actually obtained a new set of holy relics. He quickly called up the system space to check: ancient rock flower, ancient rock cup, ancient rock time, ancient rock crown, ancient rock feather quality, 4 stars effect. Each relic will provide the host with 4 types of increases: vitality, attack power, physical defense, and spell defense. Set effect: 2-piece set, maximum health increased by 20%, attack power increased by 10%. 4-piece set, all attacks will carry an additional 10% of maximum health as damage, shield effectiveness will be increased by 20%, and after releasing elemental combat skills, it will reduce the resistance of enemies within range by 10% and increase its own elemental damage by 15%, which lasts for 8 seconds. Ancient rocks buried deep underground will also pass away in the darkness. Nice one! Chu Chen did not hesitate at all and directly replaced the original 3-star fixed set with this set of 4-star relics. As a 4-star quality, Guyan is much stronger than Budong in both attributes and effects. Especially after the 4-piece set, releasing elemental combat skills can reduce the enemy's resistance and increase your own damage. The damage caused by this trade-off will be particularly obvious. With the talent of Rock God, Chu Chen is now a fully developed hexagonal warrior. Life will provide him with additional attacks, and attacks will also provide him with additional life. Although the two cannot be stacked infinitely, they are enough to make Chu Chen have an extremely strong body and terrifying attack capabilities. Chu Chen jumped out of the pit and looked at the golden beam of light in front of him, not far. He rushed all the way towards the direction of the coordinates. For some reason, at this moment his heart suddenly seemed to resonate with something. An indescribable emotion surged into Chu Chen's heart, and the closer he got to the golden beam of light, the stronger the emotion became. As he climbed over the mountains, a huge abyss with layers of winding paths appeared in front of Chu Chen. This abyss is bottomless. When you look out, you can only see endless darkness. The golden beam of light rose from the deepest part of the abyss and went straight into the sky. Chu Chen didn't hesitate at all. He raised his leg and stepped on the rock hovering at the edge of the abyss, walking down step by step. Until his body was completely submerged in the darkness of the abyss, even though everything in front of him was already pitch dark, relying on the resonance with the surrounding rocks, Chu Chen still did not stop his steps. Gradually, a golden light emerged below him, and Chu Chen no longer circled down from the surrounding rocks, but jumped directly down. When his feet stepped on the ground, what came into view was an extremely huge underground abyss, which was vast and boundless all around, as if it had no boundaries. 8 huge rock ridges were neatly arranged in a circle, appearing before Chu Chen's eyes. It is a ridge, which looks no different from the one created by Chu Chen, but its size is several times that of his current ridge. However, the surfaces of these huge rock ridges, where they originally glowed, have long since dimmed, and the seemingly indestructible rock surfaces have also begun to show faint cracks. Between every two rock ridges, there is an extremely solid dark yellow barrier. These barriers are connected end to end, firmly sealing the objects in the middle. In the very center of the area sealed by these 8 rock ridges, there stands a tall tree with golden leaves spreading all over its ancient trunk. With this giant tree as the center, layer upon layer of powerful energy fluctuations are constantly spreading out in all directions. When the wave touches the outer Xianhuang barrier, it will immediately cause ripples. Obviously, the aura emitted by the golden tree is constantly reducing the power of the seal. Looking at the appearance of those rock ridges, they are already at the end of their strength. Kala. Boom. Suddenly, the giant golden tree seemed to sense something, and the aura emanating from its body suddenly surged violently. At the same time, hideous cracks began to appear under Chu Chen's feet, as if something was about to break out from the ground. As the terrifying aura continued to spread, the cracks on the surfaces of the 8 rock ridges in front of them became more and more obvious. The dark yellow light curtains formed by each other flickered and almost went out. The seal is about to be broken. Sensing the extraordinary power, Chu Chen did not dare to delay and immediately suspended his body in the air. The jade shield surrounded him and his golden eyes stared at the seal on the ground. Bang! Until the last loud bang, the 8 rock ridges shattered in an instant, the dark yellow seal turned into starlight and dissipated, and huge cracks spread across the earth. An extremely huge black shadow finally broke out from under the ground. And accompanied by a roar that spanned countless years, Mora, X. Chapter 45. The boundless abyss began to stir violently. Chu Chen's expression became more and more solemn. He held the gun tightly in his hand, and an unprecedented sense of urgency surged in his heart. The ground was surging like a wave. He naturally knew what kind of terrifying existence was sealed here, the Ruoda Dragon King who possessed power comparable to that of the Rock King. The heavy rocks began to fly everywhere with a loud bang, but with the protection of the jade shield, Chu Chen could ignore the movements around him and quietly wait for the arrival of the final old friend. That mountain-like sturdy body, the indestructible skin of an ancient rock, and the pair of dazzling golden horns on its head. This giant beast with a terrifying appearance was exactly the Rodra Dragon King that Chu Chen had witnessed in the previous system preview. However, the Dragon King that appeared before him now was not as majestic and huge as the one that towered into the sky and reached the earth. It was unknown how many times it had been shrunk, but it was still as big as a hill. Seeing this, Chu Chen couldn't help but feel relieved. As expected, the Ruoda Dragon King in front of him was just a remnant soul after being sealed. If it was the real Ruoda, he would be courting death at his current level. But even so, this giant beast still exudes an extremely terrifying ancient aura. Since Chu Chen awakened the power of the Rock King, he has never been as cautious as he is today. Because he knew very well that his opponent was powerful enough to be fatal to him. Scarlet blood light burst out from the eyes of the Rodra Dragon King, and its eyes were fixed on Chu Chen. Every move of its huge body would cause the surrounding terrain to tremble violently. After being sealed underground for who knows how many years, the eyes of the Rthna Dragon King began to degenerate again, and the scenes reflected in his eyes had begun to become blurry. Chu Chen was so blurry in its eyes, but the familiar aura made the hatred in its heart even more violent. A strong murderous intent inevitably poured out, and the 2 strong front paws of the Rodra Dragon King suddenly jumped up and stomped down violently. Boom! There is nothing fancy, but the simple movements carry extremely fierce power. The enormous force immediately caused the ground to vibrate, and with the 2 feet as the center, circles of heavy and powerful force began to spread rapidly in all directions. The huge range affected the entire space. Even though Chu Chen was in the air, he would still be hurt by the impact. In an instant, boulders and dust were swept towards him. Relying on the protection of the jade shield, Chu Chen endured the power of this impact. The surface of the shield kept buzzing and vibrating. This was the first time that the Yuzhang shield had been affected so greatly. Roar! However, King Azhdaha's attack will not stop for the moment, and there is only endless anger and resentment left in his heart. The deafening roar that comes out of its mouth will turn into an actual shock wave that spreads in all directions, causing extremely powerful damage. The body of King Ruoda flashed with golden waves, and the huge body sank into the ground in the blink of an eye, just like a fish swimming in the water. King Ruoda actually swam on the real ground without causing any impact. Boom! The next moment, a huge body like a mountain rushed out from the ground again, and it was so fast that it arrived at Chu Chen's feet in an instant. Seeing that the mountain-like body was about to collide with him, Chu Chen did not hesitate at all, and continued to retreat upwards at a high speed, trying to quickly distance himself from the Ruda Dragon King. At the same time, the energy in his body exploded instantly, and thousands of meters above the two of them, an incomparably powerful pressure from the sky suddenly descended from the sky. The golden divine light blocked the sky, and huge stars began to smash down into the abyss at a rapid speed. Yes, without any hesitation, Chu Chen decided to summon Tianxing directly. Because facing such an opponent, he no longer holds back and has to use all his skills. This is a true battle of life and death. The huge star instantly touched the rocks surrounding the abyss. Boom! These rocks could not stop the star from falling. As the star continued to go deeper, the seemingly indestructible rocks around it all began to disintegrate. The intense heat caused by the friction immediately burned the surrounding air. The red flames gathered at the bottom of the star and turned into dazzling lava, which soon rose above the heads of Chu Chen and Ruoda Dragon King. The strong pressure and terrifying power naturally made the Ruoda Dragon King below clearly feel its presence. However, facing such an attack, the anger in the Ruoda Dragon King's heart became more and more intense. Without any pause, its huge body continued to rush upwards, until it collided heavily with the stars. The dazzling golden light illuminates the entire abyss, and the long accumulated energy finally explodes after the collision. Like a scorching sun, it spread out in all directions in an instant. I just felt the earth shaking and the area completely collapsed. Although Chu Chen could ignore the damage from the stars, he could not avoid the impact of the terrain. While the Ruoda Dragon King was being held back by Tianxing, Chu Chen released a new layer of Yuzhang shield for himself. Under the protection of the shield, he ignored the falling rocks and flying dust, and flew rapidly towards the ground. Countless fallen rocks hit the shield with a crackling sound, and Chu Chen rushed out of the already dark and boundless abyss in one fell swoop, flying dozens of meters into the air. He looked down at the ground. The abyss, which was originally uneven on all sides, had now been smashed into a neat shape by the stars. Huge smoke was spreading in the abyss. Dense and conspicuous cracks appeared on the surrounding ground. Chu Chen had no idea what the outcome would be. His eyes were fixed firmly on the abyss below. Boom! The mountain-like body of the Dragon King Ruo climbed out from below again and leaped onto the ground. But now its body is covered with dense scars, and the solid rock armor also has extremely conspicuous cracks. It was gasping heavily from its mouth, and the dragon's breath was much weaker than before. Seizing the opportunity, Chu Chen did not dare to be careless at all, and threw the white tassel spear in his hand out instantly. Golden light flowed on the gun body, and in the blink of an eye it became dozens of times larger, much larger than the one it used against the ancient rock dragon lizard, and consumed even more power. The tip of the spear smashed down towards the Ruoda Dragon King with an extremely powerful momentum. Boom! Finally, it hit the rugged rocks on the back of the Ruoda Dragon King and exploded instantly. Chapter 46. The thick rock elements attached to the surface of the white-tasseled spear instantly turned into specks of starlight and dissipated. As for the white-tasseled spear itself, it returned to its original size and was knocked back again. Chu Chen grabbed the white-tasseled spear that was knocked back in his hand, and the expression on his face became more and more nervous. Even though the terrifying body of the Ruoda Dragon King had withstood the impact of a celestial star, the skin attached to his body was still so strong. Even though the explosion just now pushed the body of the Dragon King Ruoda back a few steps, it was unable to cause any effective damage again. Roar! Suddenly, violent thunder elements emerged from all directions. Ferocious purple lightning suddenly appeared around the body of the Ruoda Dragon King. These lightnings kept wrapping around his body, causing the patterns on his body to begin to show purple lightning. Azhdaha, the elemental creator, can also possess 4 different elemental powers. Like the ancient rock dragon lizard, fire, lightning, ice, and water are all things that Ruoda can control. However, the elemental power condensed by the Ruoda Dragon King is far beyond what the ancient rock dragon lizard can achieve. The golden tree at the tail of King Ruoda gathers the most concentrated power of thunder. All these elements are compressed at one point, just for the final explosion. Boom! Along with the sudden roar of thunder, hideous purple lightning suddenly began to fall from the sky, which made Chu Chen, who was in the air, very dangerous. He began to dodge the lightning above his head at a high speed in the air. Even if the lightning struck him, it would be blocked by the jade shield. However, the number of these lightning strikes was too large and they were so densely packed together that even the jade shield could not withstand their power. In the blink of an eye, Hundreds of thunderbolts came crashing down, carrying extremely high temperatures, and striking the ground, causing a series of afterfires. Shake the heavens and the earth. While dodging the falling lightning, Chu Chen did not forget to attack the Ruota Dragon King. Rock ridges instantly stood up on the ground around it. Although these ridges were not as huge as the ones that sealed the Ruota Dragon King, when they were formed, they instantly spread powerful energy fluctuations in all directions. Chu Chen arranged these rock ridges around the body of the Ruota Dragon King, surrounding it, so that when the ripples of the rock ridges spread, multiple ripples would resonate with each other. These resonances erupted at the center where King Rudra was, and the overlapping layers could cause damage that could not be underestimated. King Ruota was trapped in the center of the rock ridge. The powerful force caused his body to ache slightly, but more importantly, after seeing these familiar rock ridges, he felt the resentment that was sealed underground. The roars from its mouth became more and more violent, and every time it opened its mouth, the surrounding earth would tremble, sand and rocks would fly, and rocks would shatter. Looking at the mad and possessed Rudra Dragon King below, Chu Chen knew very well that this was caused by wear and tear. The so-called wear and tear, to put it simply, is the constant erosion of a person's memory and rationality over the long years due to the passage of time. Until the end, there was no distinction between friend and foe, everything went completely mad, and only destruction remained. This is a shackle imposed by the law of nature on all living beings. Chu Chen doesn't know whether he will also be affected by wear and tear after he unlocks the panel of the Rock King Emperor. This is a debuff that is almost impossible to remove, and you can only let time devour you. Bang! Chu Chen's rock ridge finally couldn't withstand the power of King Ruota Dragon and exploded and shattered. King Ruota Dragon's body once again transformed from the thunder element to the hottest fire element. The blazing flames attached to its body like lava, and the extremely high temperature burned and distorted the surrounding air. The Dragon King opened his bloody mouth again, and this time he spit out a red beam of light that went straight into the sky. The next moment, the annihilating lightning suddenly dissipated, and turned into heavy lava boulders that rumbled down from the sky. It was like a volcanic eruption. Chu Chen gritted his teeth and swung the spear in his hand. Huge rock spears made of rocks suddenly appeared around him. The huge rock spear burst out with powerful force and roared towards the lava. Bang! 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 Every time the rock gun collides with the lava, it will cause a violent explosion, and the energy in Chu Chen's body will also rapidly dissipate. Controlling the rock spear, he continued to bombard the Azhdaha Dragon King below. Chu Chen instantly turned into a golden afterimage and whizzed downwards. Buzz! The elements of ice and water emerged from the body of King Rudra, gathering into a huge ice spike, surrounded by rushing water currents. Chu Chen's chi and blood power exploded. Facing the ice spikes that emitted bone-chilling cold, he swung the spear in his hand, and the rock element attached to the spear body exploded instantly. The golden spear shadow directly shattered the ice spikes into ice chips. Huge rock spears followed and collided violently with the lightning and lava released by the Ruota Dragon King. The shaking continued for a moment, and the battle between Chu Chen and the Ruota Dragon King had entered a white-hot stage. However, the energy in Chu Chen's body was rapidly dissipating. If he could not defeat the Ruota Dragon King in a short period of time, he would inevitably be the first to run out of energy and fall into a passive position. His figure quickly approached the Dragon King's body, and all the violent energy was concentrated in the tip of the gun, launching fierce attack after fierce attack on the body of the Rudra Dragon King. Roar! The powerful force caused the Rudra Dragon King to feel pain all over his body. He let out a shrill roar, and a huge gust of wind swept away. At the same time, the thick and huge tail wrapped in 4 terrifying elemental forces also swung towards Chu Chen. Bang! The originally solid Yuzhang shield shattered for the first time. However, the shield itself also blocked most of the power for Chu Chen, and the remaining power hit him and knocked him away. After flying for several thousand meters, Chu Chen finally managed to keep his body steady in the air. Although the attack was powerful, his body was also very strong, so apart from feeling a dull pain, Chu Chen did not suffer any serious injuries. The clothes on his upper body were already torn, revealing his perfect muscles. The golden lines became more and more intense and obvious, crisscrossing on Chu Chen's body, appearing particularly dazzling. He gently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, knowing that he didn't have much time left. There was no point in continuing the painless attack. When the elements were recharged again, the light in Chu Chen's eyes became even brighter. One more time the heavens move everything. Chapter 47. As Chu Chen's calm voice rang out, the sky was once again washed by divine light. The elemental energy condensed in his body was rapidly dissipating, and Chu Chen only felt that his body was becoming more and more exhausted. His current realm is really too low. Even though the Ruda Dragon King in front of him is just a remnant soul that has been sealed for thousands of years, it is still a very troublesome existence for him who has only such strength now. As the stars fell, Chu Chen continued to condense one rock spear after another that appeared in the air and smashed down on the Ruoda Dragon King continuously. These rock spears continuously collided with the 4 elemental attacks released by the Rodra Dragon King. The sound of explosions rang in the ears, causing a series of violent shocks. Visible to the naked eye, the golden lines on Chu Chen's body gradually dimmed, indicating that the energy in his body was on the verge of being exhausted. He took a deep breath and could only place his hopes on this star. The star was getting closer and closer to the ground, and this creature carrying terrifying destructive power descended upon their heads again. Faced with this strong feeling of oppression, the huge body of the Rodra Dragon King began to ache slightly. It suddenly raised its head, and the red blood light in its eyes flashed instantly. Hot lava, violent thunder and lightning, extremely cold ice and flowing water. 4 powerful elemental forces represented by 4 colors began to spread over its body. These 4 elements passed through the body of the Rodra Dragon King and finally gathered on the giant golden tree on its tail. After rapid compression, the powerful force finally turned into a huge elemental ball shining with 4 colors. As the Dragon King Ruoda swung his sword vigorously, the elemental ball containing terrifying power instantly counterattacked towards Tianxing from bottom to top. The elemental sphere is only half the size of the Tianxing, but the enormous power contained in it is in no way inferior to that of the Tianxing. Boom! The 2 huge objects collided with each other in midair in an instant. Both objects contained rapidly compressed energy, and the 2 energies exploded in an instant of collision. The brilliant light completely bloomed in this world, blocking Chu Chen's vision, and the roar caused by the violent explosion covered his hearing. The violent hurricane spread in all directions with a terrifying impact force. The earth shook and huge cracks began to appear. Even the sky seemed to be torn apart. Relying on his body's instinct, Chu Chen gathered his little remaining strength into a jade shield to protect himself, but the huge energy burst still caused the shield to vibrate. As for the Azhdaha Dragon King, it could not escape such a strong explosion. Its thick limbs had sunk deeply into the ground, constantly absorbing the energy of the rock elements on the ground, and built a huge golden shield around itself. Now, the 2 are in a stalemate and trying hard to hold on. Whoever cannot survive the explosion of this element first will be the loser in the end. Time seemed to stand still at this moment, and the only thing the body could feel was the sudden impact, like a small boat in the stormy waves, which could capsize at any time. Most of the ancient rock elemental creatures living underground are blind. In a trance, a calm voice suddenly came to Chu Chen's ears. The voice was ancient and deep, as if it was telling a story from the past. As the voice continued, the scene in front of Chu Chen changed again. He seemed to have suddenly become a bystander, only seeing pictures appearing in front of him. The first picture is when the world was first created, when the entire world was still empty. There is no fluctuation of any elements, and no existence of any life. The first element, rock, was born from nothingness. All things in the world are based on rock, and other elements are gradually formed after the rock element is condensed. The first creature born from the ancient rock element was a giant dragon sleeping deep underground. Since it lives in endless darkness, this dragon does not need vision, so it does not have eyes. They just live and sleep underground like this, ignoring the changes in time and the great changes in the world above the ground. Until one day, this giant dragon that existed forever underground was discovered by a figure in a white robe. They made a contract that the figure would give the dragon eyes to see things clearly and bring it to the ground, and the dragon would ensure to abide by the order and live in peace with the creatures on the ground. In the second picture, a giant dragon with 2 eyes appeared on the earth. At that time, the earth was in chaos and war. The giant dragon then followed the white-robed figure closely and fought with him everywhere. This was a battle of blood and fire. The enemy's corpses were scattered all over the land, and the turbid blood condensed into rivers and solidified. In the third picture, the war in the chaotic world will eventually end. The dragon, the white-robed figure and other people will create a kingdom for mankind in the bay. Because it is located in the bay, it is easy to navigate. In the early morning, when the first ocean-going ship sails out of the port, the giant dragon and the human figure stand quietly on the cliff in the distance, witnessing the growth of this country. The subsequent scenes all depict a brief peace. But nothing remains unchanged. Under the erosion of time, wear and tear began to appear on the dragon's body. Anger and hatred devoured its memory, and killing and violence filled its mind. The contract will eventually be torn apart, and the dragon and the figure will engage in a magnificent battle that will shake the world. At the last moment, the dragon's last bit of rationality awakened, and it voluntarily allowed itself to be sealed once again in the darkness underground, waiting for the passage of time. The scene ends here. Chu Chen's gaze returns to the powerful explosion again. He sees a silver light suddenly fly out of the body of King Ruotu. That is the only remaining memory and rational good thoughts. This light reflected in Chu Chen's eyes, and a faint voice came, "We sign a new contract. May we never make the same mistake again." As the silver light sank into his body, Chu Chen could clearly feel that the strength that had been exhausted in his body was recovering rapidly. Moreover, it will be stronger and purer than before. The explosion that covered the sky and the sun will eventually dissipate, and the huge body of the Rodra King will eventually turn into starlight and dissipate under the violent impact. Is this the end? Chu Chen felt a little dazed. If the Dragon King Ruoda had not injected the remaining power of kindness into his body, he would have been the first to be annihilated by the impact due to exhaustion. Ruoda can continue to survive based on that power. It can only be said that just now, the good thoughts buried deep in the heart of King Ruotu Dragon King were awakened again, and the last bit of rationality made it make a choice to entrust this power to Chu Chen. Chapter 48. Young man. Looking at the remaining soul of the Ruotu Dragon King that dissipated between heaven and earth, Chu Chen couldn't help feeling a little melancholy. Although he is not Morux, he can feel the friendship as solid as rock from the memory just now, and the regret that even the solid rock will eventually be eroded by the passage of time. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully passing the trial and unlocking a new talent ability fighting at all times. The surrounding scene slowly faded into nothingness again until it turned into darkness. The system's prompt clearly indicated that Chu Chen had successfully passed the trial. He then opened his current attribute panel, Host, Chu Chen Race, Human. Level 20 Seat, 1 Rock, the 6 directions lead it to become Bones 1 Life Unlock Effect, the strength of the rock ridges created by the host's condensation of the Earth's core is increased. At the same time, the number of rock ridges that can be created is no longer limited. It depends on the energy limit in the host's body. The host can create multiple rock ridges at the same time. The host's rock talent is enhanced, and the strength of all rock-based creations condensed from it will be additionally improved. Talent, Rock King 1. Rock, awakens the rock resonance of heaven and earth. The host uses rock as a medium and can transform it into a weapon. The quality and strength of the weapon increases with the host's level. 2 Indestructible, the host's physical strength is greatly enhanced, its own toughness is improved, the effects of controlled skills are weakened, and it also gains a certain degree of self-healing ability. 3 Blood Weapon, all attacks of the host will carry an additional damage of 10% of its maximum health. At the same time, for every increase in the health of a certain attribute, the host's attack power will also gain an additional numerical increase, and vice versa. 5 An Army of 1,000 Rocks, the host's rock climbing power is further enhanced. Now, with the rock element as the medium, the host can condense the world's solid rock climbing to forge an ancient army of thousands of rocks to assist in the battle. The Qunyan army can fight independently or under the control of the host. The number of 1,000 rocks troops that can be gathered, 6 Skill, 1 Earth's core, the host can control the changes in the earth around him and condense multiple rock jade pillars. The stone pillars can continuously cause continuous damage to the surroundings. 2 Jade Zhong, the host can gather strength to give himself a layer of shield, which will protect the host from all types of attacks and further improve the host's resilience. 3 Star, the host can gather strength to summon a star rock, which causes huge damage and petrifies the area for a certain period of time. The damage and range of the star rock increase with the host's level. Having just defeated the Ruotu Dragon King, the system also provided him with a certain amount of experience rewards. These experiences raised Chu Chen's level to level 21, which means he entered the 3rd level Kaiwan realm. However, after reaching this level, Chu Chen looked at his experience bar again and found that the experience required for upgrading was more than 10 times that before. And as the level increases, the growth rate becomes higher. This means that although the upgrade is fast in the early stages, it will become slower as time goes on. And now, a new ability will be added to his talent column, Accompany You, Fight in All Directions. The remaining soul of Ruoda Dragon King signs a new contract with the host with good intentions, and everything starts from the beginning. You and I coexist, the newborn Ruota Dragon King will accompany the host, fight in all directions. The host can summon the Dragon King Ruota to join the battle through the contract. Description: we, the newborn, hope not to repeat the same mistakes. Summoning the Ruota Dragon King to join the battle? Isn't that a bit too much? Thinking back to the battle with the Ruota Dragon King just now, even though it was just a remnant soul that was sealed, the power it displayed was unprecedentedly terrifying. If I could summon such a terrifying guy to help me in the battle right now, wouldn't that be? Chu Chen didn't think any more and immediately used this talent. The huge elemental force began to resonate around his body and the energy in his body began to be consumed rapidly. It seems that in order to summon the Dragon King Rudra, he must also pay a part of his own energy as a price. Come out, Lord Rudra! As Chu Chen finished speaking, a golden light instantly flashed before his eyes. Only the Dragon King as tall as a hill as imagined did not appear. Instead, there appeared a rapidly shrunken cute version of Ryota, the size of an adult cat, with a body like rock and covered with dense scales like rock. The scene before him was obviously beyond Chu Chen's expectations. Looking at this pet-like fellow in front of him, he no longer had any of his previous majesty. Not to mention the majestic giant dragon that shakes the heavens and the earth so much that a single shake would eclipse the entire universe. Even the current Ruota would have a hard time killing a person, right? Ding! The current Ruota Dragon King is only in the resting form after rebirth. The host can command Ruota Dragon King to transform into a combat form to assist in the battle. After hearing what the system said, Chu Chen felt relieved. It seemed that the Ruota in front of him had a different side. He immediately let Ruota transform into combat form. As the thought moved his mind, the fat and adorable pet-like creature in front of him changed again. An ancient light covered its entire body, and its entire size began to grow rapidly, visibly to the naked eye. The fighting form of the Dragon King Rudra has finally transformed into a body of about 3 meters in height. The rock scales covering his body have also begun to become sharp, and the dragon's aura has changed completely. Although it is still not as majestic as before, it does give a sense of oppression. After all, Ruota Dragon King now has a symbiotic relationship with himself, and will continue to become stronger as his level increases. I believe that one day, Ruota Dragon King will be able to return to his peak and shake the world again. In any case, Chu Chen was very satisfied with this new ability. His strength was greatly enhanced because of Ruotuo's arrival. With a wave of his hand, Chu Chen summoned the Ruotu Dragon King back to the system space, and then he slowly disappeared into the darkness. When he opened his eyes again, he was already back in his room. I looked at the time and 2 hours had passed. Chu Chen was still wearing neat clothes, without a single scar on his body. It seems that the injuries and torn clothes he suffered during the trial had no impact on reality. Chapter 49. You finished your training. Suddenly, a voice came from outside the door. Mo Suihan's figure was leaning against the door at some point. I arrived an hour ago. I knocked on the door but there was no response. I was worried that something might have happened to you, so I came in directly. After I came in, I saw you sitting there with your eyes closed. You must be practicing, right? So I didn't disturb you. Her tone was a little hurried, as if she was a little embarrassed for her intrusion. It's okay, Mr. Mo. After all, you are also thinking about my safety. How are the people down there? Chu Chen didn't care about it. He was more concerned about whether the building downstairs was still as congested. Captain Luo has sent people over. All the people have been evacuated. They will try their best to ensure that your life is not disturbed before school starts. Mo Suihan looked towards the window. Following her gaze, there was indeed no one downstairs. Chu Chen, I'm here to talk to you about something. The academy has sent a big shot to ensure your safety. Come with me to meet him. Isn't it enough to have a strong person like you protecting me? There is no need to use up too many resources for my safety. Chu Chen was a little puzzled. Generally speaking, due to the current tense war situation and shortage of manpower, each country only sends one person to protect the new generation of geniuses. No, never underestimate your importance. As long as you are alive, it is more important than anything else. Mo Suihan shook his head and took a deep breath. You saw the previous invasion. I was entangled by the enemy. It was difficult for me to focus on you under such circumstances. If your strength had not far exceeded the imagination of the Church of all races, I would have had to burn my own life energy to protect you. Anyway, that senior is here, just follow me to take a look. Mo Suihan walked up to Chu Chen, stretched out a hand, and tried to pull him up. Good. Chu Chen nodded slightly, took the jade hand handed over and stood up. How do I describe the feeling? Very smooth. He followed Mo Suihan out of the door. A black business car was already parked downstairs. Get in the car. Mo Suihan sat in the driver's seat, and Chu Chen sat in the co-pilot's seat. In silence all the way, Mo Suihan drove him all the way to the northernmost part of Yunhai City. The north of the city is also the suburb of Yunhai City. There are no areas where people live here, only military garrisons. The two soon arrived at the military area in the north of the city, which was the least attacked of the four gates of Yunhai City, because there was a vast sea not far away from the north gate of the city. Various natural disasters often occur in that sea area. On the day when the Church of All Races launched a surprise attack, a small tsunami was occurring near the sea north of the city. Thanks to this, it was difficult for the Church of All Races to send personnel to launch an attack from the north of the city. Their arrival instantly attracted a lot of people's attention, especially after seeing Chu Chen get off the car. Many people showed expressions of astonishment on their faces. Even though some people did not witness Chu Chen's battle that day, the video of his battle that day had already been widely circulated, and basically no one said that they had not seen it. The two of them had a smooth journey and no one stopped them in the military area until Mo Suihan brought Chu Chen to a two-story warehouse. The warehouse looked very dilapidated, with most of the paint on the outside peeling off and many places covered in rust. What is different here from other places is that, although it is located in a military area, there are no soldiers stationed nearby, and the nearest gathering place for soldiers is still several thousand meters away. That senior is inside. This is his temporary office in Yunhai City. Please go in. Mo Suihan walked to the side of the warehouse and motioned Chu Chen to go in by himself. After nodding slightly, Chu Chen also opened the door of the warehouse. To his surprise, the interior of the warehouse that came into view was completely different from the shabby exterior. The decoration in the entire warehouse is very exquisite. In the center is a huge office desk. Both sides of the warehouse are made up entirely of bookshelves, which are filled with various books. Both the floor and the walls have been carefully decorated. On one side of the desk are two floor-to-ceiling windows inlaid with frosted glass, and the midday sun shines into the room from the windows. At this moment, an old man in plain clothes was sitting lazily behind his desk, sipping a cup of tea carefully. After seeing Chu Chen coming, the old man also said with surprise, "Is this Chu Chen? Come and sit down." The old man's tone was calm, but it contained a hint of irresistible majesty. Across the desk, there was a cup of clear tea in front of Chu Chen's chair. Sitting here, the sunlight pouring in from the floor-to-ceiling windows just happened to shine on Chu Chen, making him feel warm and a little sleepy. "Come, try the tea I brought. This tea is definitely top quality," the old man said, as if he was afraid that Chu Chen would not believe him. He took another sip of his tea, "A batch of goods from the void battlefield, they taste great." The tea was clear and emerald green, exuding an extremely fresh tea fragrance. Chu Chen only took a slight sniff and felt that the fragrance went through his nose into his internal organs, making him feel very refreshed. He picked up the tea and took a sip. As soon as it entered his mouth, before he could taste it carefully, the tea slid down his throat and dissolved immediately as it entered his stomach. It seemed to be flowing continuously through his limbs and meridians, making Chu Chen feel refreshed. As for his mouth, the fragrance of tea still remained. Although he did not have to taste it carefully, he could slowly savor it afterwards. Chu Chen regretted that he had only unlocked the ability panel of the Rock King Emperor, but had not unlocked his erudition. Otherwise, facing such a refined tea, he could also make a detailed evaluation instead of just blurting out two words, "It's delicious." Of course. This tea is a hard currency among the foreign races. Ordinary people are not even qualified to smell it, let alone drink it. The old man showed a very proud look. "Then allow me to introduce myself first. My name is Xiang Hanhai. I came here to protect you, my friend." Chapter 50. Chu Chen, I want to ask you, do you know how important you are? Xiang Hanhai leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, and looked at Chu Chen quietly. Faced with this sudden question, Chu Chen paused for a moment and said, "It should be very important, right?" He was naturally aware of his own importance. The Imperial Capital Academy actually sent two people to protect him. Doesn't this illustrate his current status? However, when such things come out of one's own mouth, it will inevitably seem a bit boastful. Xiang Hanhai nodded heavily, it doesn't matter. There's no need to be modest. You can absolutely say that you are not very important, but the most important. Your performance is completely unprecedented since you awakened. In fact, there are of course many monster-like people who can show their strength soon after awakening, but no one can summon a meteorite to hit the blue planet within a few days of awakening. The terrifying power you are currently able to display is similar to that of a natural disaster. The one who was closest to you in history only gained the power of a natural disaster 3 months after awakening. Xiang Hanhai paused for a moment, took a sip of tea and continued, generally speaking, your power would be quite useful on a normal battlefield. But how could we bear to let you go on the battlefield like this? Then, let me ask you another question. How do you feel about your current situation? Chu Chen thought for a moment, then spoke again, it's very dangerous. Yes, it is dangerous. Xiang Hanhai nodded and sighed with some melancholy. You have been exposed to the sun and the shadows, but I don't know how many people regard you as a thorn in their eyes. The church of all races, foreign races and even some other countries are all watching you closely. Originally, in the past, we were reluctant to show off too much to top geniuses like you before you had grown up. Because you all have trump cards, we are targeting them by surprise. A virtual screen suddenly appeared on the desk, showing the most popular video website in the world today. The content of the website was exactly the video of Chu Chen's previous battle. From the video data, we can see that the number of views has now exceeded 2 billion times. But this method won't work for you. You've already become famous, so the higher UPS have decided to change your training plan. Xiang Hanhai said softly, there is another reason. In the past, we hid people like you. Although we could use you as a trump card, we were often looked down upon by other countries in normal times. When a genius emerges in those countries, they are eager to build momentum for them and make it known to everyone. They say it is to boost morale or to show off their power. In short, people in the international community often use this to criticize us for having no successors. We didn't want to care too much about such slanderous words. After all, we are facing a powerful enemy, and resisting the invasion of all races is the most important thing, isn't it? But, damn it! Xiang Hanhai suddenly stretched out a hand and was about to slap the table. In an instant, Chu Chen could feel an extremely terrifying force surging from the other party's palm. He couldn't estimate the strength of this force, but he was certain that if this hand touched the table, not only the desk between the two of them, but even this huge warehouse would be shattered in an instant. However, when Xiang Hanhai's palm was only a few centimeters away from the table, this force seemed to suddenly disappear out of thin air. Bang! The impact on the tabletop only caused the entire desk to shake slightly. Our tolerance has only made those bastards more aggressive. Even some tiny countries want to show off their power and ride on our heads. This is really AFG uncle that I can tolerate, but my aunt can't. Xiang Hanhai was in a state of extreme anger. Chu Chen was afraid that his impulsiveness would cause further consequences, so he said carefully, Senior Xiang, how about you, drink some more tea to cool down. Xiang Hanhai drank the tea in the cup, then took a deep breath and continued, but it doesn't matter. Fortunately, you showed up at the critical moment. That's right. Xiang Hanhai patted his shoulder with one hand, as if entrusting him with an important task. For those countries that are showing off their power and being arrogant, we must teach them a lesson. And the one who can do this is you, Chu Chen. I don't quite understand, what should I do? Chu Chen asked. Did Moyeta tell you that we are going to hold a special trial camp for geniuses like you before school starts this year? Hearing Xiang Hanhai's words, Chu Chen recalled that Mo Suihan had indeed told him about this trial camp last time, and nodded slightly. That's right. This year's trial camp is very special because it is not just for people from our country, but is co-hosted with other countries. That is to say, you can meet the geniuses from other countries there. This is a good opportunity to restore the reputation of Zhuzhu. Xiang Hanhai stood up and walked to Chu Chen's side, slowly pouring tea into his cup. There is no shortage of restless people in this world. Once you meet them, disputes are inevitable due to their pride and arrogance. If someone is blind and comes to you, Xiang Hanhai patted Chu Chen on the shoulder, as long as you can't kill them, teach them a lesson. Chu Chen nodded, and then asked doubtfully, so when does this trial camp start? Xiang Hanhai shrugged, I'm not sure. It should be half a month. I'll tell you in advance then. Now that we've talked about the serious topics, let's talk about something light-hearted. He pulled a ring from his pocket and handed it over. This is a completely black ring with a scarlet gem inlaid on the top. Is this a storage ring? Chu Chen took the ring. Storage rings can only be made by strong people with space-related abilities, so they are very expensive. It is truly a priceless existence. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.